We start with an intense training scene where a powerful kick is blocked at the very last second. Next, the strike is countered with a strong punch that lands right on the attacker's leg. We see that the two guys were just practicing at a gym, and Su-hong lands a kick on his friend. The protagonist's buddy complains about the pain, saying that hit hurt a lot. The friend praises Su-hong's diamond fist and asks if he has already reached the level of subtlety. Then it is explained that in this world, martial arts are divided into 5 levels of mastery. His partner is shocked and says that when it comes to the diamond fist, no one in the class compares to him. With that, Su-hong already wants to get back to training, but the other guy looks completely exhausted. He calls the protagonist a training maniac and says he is going home to grab something to eat. As he leaves, the young man says goodbye to Professor Lee, who just scolds him for leaving without a shirt. The master approaches Su-hong and asks if he is not going to sign up for the martial division. The instructor asks why he hasn't yet paid the 30,000 yuan fee for the registration. Su-hong asks for a few more days, but the professor says he knows about his situation and that rules are rules. Night falls as the gym starts to become empty and quiet. Alone in the middle of the court, our hero reflects on the money problem for the registration. He goes back to training, but the thought of the 30,000 yuan fee will not leave his mind. In a flashback from the past, we find out that his parents passed away in a tragedy when he was a child. After the incident, he went to live with his aunt and uncle, who supported his training upon discovering his talent. After all, in this era full of monsters, martial artists are the ones who make the most money. He trains to give them a good life, but now he feels like he is just burdening them. Back home, our hero walks down a deserted and poorly lit street toward his building. Arriving at his door, he hears his aunt and uncle talking about the late rent and his registration fee. Hiding, the young man listens to his uncle saying that his talent is far too great to be wasted. His aunt even suggests stopping her medication to save money, which leaves the man worried. Su-hong hears his aunt and uncle's entire conversation and gets a serious expression on his face. Guilt consumes him as he realizes how much his family is sacrificing because of his dream. With that, he walks inside and announces he is home, receiving a comment from his aunt about his late training. His uncle tells him to rest because he needs energy for the next day's practice. Once in his room, the young man reflects on his aunt and uncle's conversation and the weight he is putting on them. Lying in his bed, he decides he will solve his own problems since his aunt and uncle have already done enough. The protagonist then thinks that for a martial arts practitioner, there is only one place to make quick money. The next day, we see a modern and imposing building surrounded by a green and well-kept area. Inside the place, an underground fighting arena is packed, with an announcer hyping up the crowd. A woman introduces the fighter of the night, the mysterious Mr. Minotaur, who is actually our hero. The prize for winning 4 matches in a row is 60,000, an amount that would solve his problems. In the audience, some men comment that they have never seen that guy, and that he is just a rookie. The host asks the masked young man to hype up the crowd, but he does not know how to do that. She then suggests that he provoke the audience and talk some trash to irritate them a bit. The young man then shouts that he is invincible against anyone below the martial artist level, calling everyone weak. The crowd reacts with anger, calling the fighter arrogant, and saying he won't even know what hit him. The audience screams wildly, eager for a fierce clash, while the announcer signals the start of the match. Our hero senses the threatening aura in the air, but knows this is the only way to get the money. The first opponent, wearing a monkey mask, provokes him, saying he is going to play around with him a little. Analyzing the opponent, the masked fighter notices that his stance is unstable and he looks like an easy target. Then the enemy goes on the attack with a powerful punch, yelling for him to stop daydreaming. However, our young hero blocks the strike easily, surprising his opponent. Wasting no time, he grabs the masked guy's head and throws him to the ground with brutal force. The opponent's body is thrown fiercely to the other side of the ring, impressing everyone. Standing victorious, the Minotaur already calls for the next one, and the announcer declares his first win. The audience that was insulting him before is now impressed by the rookie's display of power. Right after, the next challenger, a muscular guy with an afro, says his luck has run out. The Minotaur invites him to fight, thinking he is perfect for testing the power of his diamond fist. The challenger advances quickly, throwing a fast punch toward our hero's face. Once again, the young fighter blocks the attack with his own fist, creating a shockwave. The opponent is startled by the wind force from the punch, while Su-hong notices his power is lower. Seizing the opportunity, he counters with a powerful strike that hits the opponent squarely. After taking the punch, the protagonist realizes the enemy's stance is wide open and full of flaws. This way, he takes advantage of the opening to land a devastating kick on the side of the man's body. The impact is so strong that the guy is launched far away, recognizing the Minotaur's absurd strength. Victorious once again, he calls for the next one while the announcer declares his second consecutive win. The fight continues with the Minotaur taking down another opponent while the arena goes wild. From a luxurious VIP box, a powerful man watches, saying the kid is well above average. Another man watches the Minotaur's third victory and considers him perfect for fixed fights. Then, a young man in a fox mask offers to recruit the rookie for his master. Su-hong thinks his diamond fist is more than enough to deal with those disciples. With his thoughts focused, he knows he only needs one more win to get the 60,000. However, his final opponent appears and is the famous White Fox, which surprises our hero. The audience is outraged because the White Fox is a quasi-martial artist, and that is unfair. The protagonist understands the challenge will be tough, but there is no way he can lose. On the other side of the ring, the White Fox smiles very confidently under his mask. In an elegant pose, the challenger says he is not afraid because he knows his own limits. With that, the final round of the challenge is announced by the arena's host. Then the match begins, and the two fighters charge at each other at high speed. Knowing his level is lower, the Minotaur decides his first move will be an all-out attack. He throws a powerful punch, but the White Fox defends it with a strange technique. From the impact, Suhong realizes his opponent's power is not that of a quasi-martial artist. He realizes the enemy is a true martial artist who is hiding his power. The White Fox then prepares to use a powerful technique, focusing his energy. He attacks with the rushing Thunder Fist, landing a direct hit on our protagonist. The young man is pushed back, badly bruised, and acknowledges the terrifying strength of a martial artist. In the audience, everyone recognizes the technique and yells that the Minotaur is done for, as it was the triple Thunder Fist. The White Fox attacks endlessly and provokes the protagonist to fight back and show what he is capable of. Under the rain of blows, Suhong only defends himself and thinks that if he keeps this up, he will end up losing. Meanwhile, the opponent continues the assault, and the young fighter looks for a chance to strike back. In a moment of pure endurance, our hero manages to block one of the masked enemy's punches. Seizing this opening, he spins his body and lands a quick counterattack on his opponent's chin. The strike makes the White Fox stumble backward, being thrown forcefully onto the arena floor. Even with the counterattack, the protagonist falls to the ground, feeling his consciousness fading fast. The opponent takes off his mask and steps on the Minotaurs, saying the prize money for the fight is now 0 for him. He then reveals that his master invited him to participate in fixed fights, and that they would pay the prize. The White Fox warns him to think carefully, as he will not be able to handle the consequences of refusing. Lying on the ground, Suhong rejects the offer and asks how they even call themselves martial artists. The opponent gets annoyed by the young man's answer and asks if there will be no deal between them then. With that, he says he will end it all, and that Suhong can only be a martial artist in his dreams. However, the protagonist's eyes shine with a new determination as he thinks about his goal. When the final strike is about to hit him, the young man moves in a blur and dodges the attack. The White Fox is completely shocked to see that the Minotaur could still move like that. Then, a red aura surrounds Suhong's body as he repeats that there is no way he can fail. The enemy cannot believe that even after taking his best hit, the guy can still stand. Our hero thinks of his aunt and uncle and their sacrifice, wondering if he should abandon his martial code. He envisions a future where his family suffers and absolutely refuses that possibility. A mysterious voice asks him about the price he would pay for his family and his faith. With an aura of red energy exploding from his body, he shouts that he would pay any price. The voice asks if he is willing to pay, and the young man answers he would pay with everything he has. The ground around his feet begins to crack from the immense amount of power released. Suddenly, Suhong is transported to a strange, dark place with blue lights. Looking around, he wonders what kind of place that is, with sinister shadows everywhere. Before him appears a giant golden creature with a divine and imposing appearance. The being of light then says it will give him a chance to change his destiny. A golden energy starts swirling around the protagonist, enveloping his entire body. Next, a transparent golden panel appears floating right in front of the young man. The panel shows all his attributes, such as vitality, spirit, and his martial skills. Suhong notices it displays his information and wonders if it is a touchscreen. Out of curiosity, the guy touches the quest section to see what that meant. The quest is a beginner's guide, and the goal is to improve his arts and defeat the White Fox. He is confused by the beginner's guide, and then a digital clone of himself appears behind him. Without warning, the copy charges at him with impressive speed for a direct attack. Our hero manages to defend the first strike, but is surprised by the clone's strength. He notices the copy is using his diamond fist in a much more subtle and perfect way. Seeing such a good model in front of him, he decides he cannot miss the chance to learn. Fighting against the clone, Suhong wonders if that is a demonstration for him to learn. But he gets distracted for a moment and ends up taking a powerful punch right in the stomach. The impact of the blow is so strong that the guy is thrown back, unable to counter. Then, a notification shows his progress has increased, and he is shocked by the speed of the improvement. He understands this guide helps him improve his skills much faster and prepares to fight. With that, the fight resumes, and the two charge each other at high speed. During the exchange of blows, his proficiency in the diamond fist begins to rise rapidly. The same happens with his movement technique, which improves with every step he takes there. All his skills level up absurdly, reaching close to the maximum. His floating light palm reaches 100% and goes from the proficient level to the micro level. Shortly after, the void step also hits the maximum level and evolves to the next stage. Finally, the diamond fist is completely mastered, and he lands a final strike on his clone. The copy dissolves into light particles, and the protagonist stands there panting after the intense training. A notification congratulates him on the mission and asks if he wants to return to reality. Back in the arena, the Minotaur agrees and faces the White Fox with his red aura pulsing. The enemy gets annoyed by his mystery and goes on the attack, yelling for him to take the hit. He then uses his most powerful technique, the Rushing Thunder Fist, to finish the fight. However, Su-hong dodges easily and says the opponent's movement is too slow. The White Fox is shocked by the speed while our hero prepares his counterattack. The punch lands squarely on the opponent's face, breaking his mask into several pieces. The protagonist's powerful punch completely shatters the enemy's mask. The audience is in complete shock at the sudden turnaround in the fight, and silence takes over the place. Victorious, the Minotaur stands over the White Fox's fallen body, who is unconscious on the ground. He then turns to the announcer and asks when he will receive the prize money he won. In the VIP box, the boss is shocked because not even martial artists master the diamond fist like the boy does. With that, he orders his men to follow the fighter and uncover his true identity at all costs. Outside the arena, our hero walks back home through the dark city streets. But halfway there, he realizes he is being followed by some suspicious people. At the corner, the two men in suits continue the pursuit through the poorly lit alley. They lose sight of him and wonder where he went, as they need to find out who he is. Meanwhile, the young man hides between the building walls and thinks they are tracking him. He then escapes across the rooftops under the moonlight without being seen by anyone. An hour later, the guy finally arrives safely at his building without being noticed. Inside, his aunt and uncle are amazed by the cash and ask if he robbed a bank. He lies that the dojo master sponsored him, but his uncle remembers he said the place was cheap. The young man then asks if they still do not trust him and holds his aunt's hand. With that, the two are happy and say he would never lie and that he has a promising future. Later that night, the protagonist goes up to the roof of his building to reflect a bit. He sits down, relieved because the rent, the registration, and his aunt's medicine are taken care of. He thanks the system and notes that, aside from the skills, his other stats haven't changed. He then reads a notification explaining the use of the martial value he earned in the fight. With this, he discovers he can increase his vitality and skills using those points. After using some points, his vitality attribute rises quickly and hits the 90 mark. With the sudden increase in power, the protagonist is completely shocked and feels the difference. A powerful aura explodes from his body as energy flows intensely through his veins. Su-hong then realizes that with this new level, he has reached the stage of a quasi-martial artist. Excited about the evolution, he decides to put all his remaining points into his vitality. The guy notices his strength has improved a lot, and even his injuries have healed completely. Then, the young man jumps across the city rooftops looking for a suitable place for a test. He thinks about going to the school's training ground because there is a combat power tester there. Arriving at the location, he finds a large outdoor training courtyard entirely empty. In the center of the yard, he approaches a level 1 combat power tester. With a red aura surrounding him, he prepares for the strike and says he will use 70% of his strength. His eye glows with a red light as he focuses all his power into his fist. The punch hits the tester squarely with devastating force, creating a massive impact. After the strike, the protagonist is left somewhat speechless by what just happened there. The machine starts to let out smoke and sparks, and he worries about having to pay for the damage. A loud noise echoes through the place, and someone yells complaining about the sound, so our hero runs away. An old man in pajamas appears furious and wonders which jerk broke the school's tester. Very angry, he swears that when classes start, he will educate the culprits the right way. The next day, in the school gym, all the students are gathered for a special activity. A classmate asks why Chen Shen got beaten up while the others gossip about the incident. Gossips say he broke the tester and was punished by the principal for not confessing to the act. The principal introduces a level 3 martial artist named Chen Tian to teach a new technique. The crowd is excited because it is the first time they see an artist of that level, and the class would be expensive. The protagonist recognizes the technique as the same one the White Fox used in the underground arena fight. He knows the registration fee for an art like that would cost hundreds of thousands and decides to focus. The instructor says he will demonstrate the technique 10 times and that the rest depends on everyone's effort. With a firm step, the master begins to prepare to show the power of his fist. He executes the strike and explains that the thunder fist is fierce and emits a thunderous sound. The students talk about the technique's levels, which range from 3 to 7 different sounds. With a golden aura, the martial artist shows he is at the master level of the skill. After the demonstration, he warns the youths not to dream too high and to focus on the basics. Next, the master begins the second demonstration and asks everyone to try to keep up. After several hours of training, everyone is exhausted and complains they cannot learn the technique. One of them gets annoyed and yells that a rank C martial art is far too difficult to learn. The protagonist's friend looks for him and asks if he has learned it yet, but he is nowhere to be found. Suddenly, Chen Shen, the school genius, shouts that he managed to reach the basic level of the technique. The principal points him out to the master, who says that level in other cities is merely the basics. Somewhere else, we see a modern and luxurious building with architecture very different from the school. Meanwhile, Master Chen complains to Principal Li that the class of students is bad and he came for nothing. They agree that talent is very important in martial arts and that effort alone is not enough. Suddenly, a thunder sound echoes through the courtyard, and the two turn around, completely startled. Looking at the source of the sound, they see the protagonist surrounded by lightning and are shocked by his power. The principal is shocked because he is a student, and the master cannot believe someone mastered the technique in half a day. Hiding behind the fence, the principal yells that he heard 9 sounds and is completely astounded by it. Then Master Chen seems to have a great revelation and says he understands everything now. At that moment, the instructor's fist begins to glow with golden energy full of lightning. With that, he uses his own rushing thunder fist with incredible force. The principal shouts that his friend reached 8 sound level, and he thanks the young man for the inspiration. With that, the master says it is no time to chat, and that they need to find that student right now. Running to the training ground, they arrive there and realize the boy has already left. Far away, the protagonist thinks about the exhaustive rank C technique that far surpasses the Vajra fist. At home, he looks at his panel and notes the technique is already perfect and needs more martial points. The young man then arrives in front of a large gate, which is the entrance to the Furious Thunder Dojo. Inside the place, several practitioners are training their spear skills in a synchronized way. An acquaintance greets him and asks why he is there, and the guy says he just came to practice. At that moment, a noise catches their attention, and they see a purple-haired guy stepping on another person. The aggressor looks furious and yells at the man on the ground for daring to speak ill of his professor. The protagonist asks what is going on, and his colleague explains the attacker is a student of a new master. The colleague continues the explanation saying his disciple, named Li Yan, is also very strong. Li Yan then charges at the other guy with a punch, asking how he dares to challenge him. However, the strike is stopped mid-air by a firm hand holding the attacker's wrist. It was the protagonist who stares at him with a serious look and tells him to stop that fight. The purple-haired guy challenges him to a fight, and our hero accepts without hesitation. But an instructor arrives complaining about the noise and warns that the class is about to start. With that, the bully says the young man got lucky and walks away to join the others. Watching the scene, Suhong thinks that person is far too arrogant for his own good. The master announces it is the last day to learn the Raging Sea Spear technique. With a quick movement, he begins to demonstrate the skill for all the students. The instructor thinks that with just one demonstration, he doubts anyone can learn it. Our hero grabs one of the spears and a blue aura begins to flow from his body. The guy's eye shines with the same blue light and reflects the master's image in his pupil. After finishing, the instructor throws the spear on the ground with a loud metallic clank. He then turns around and says the rest of the learning depends on each of the students. The other practitioners complain that one demonstration is a scam because whoever is in the back cannot see anything. However, Suhong understands the core of the technique is a dragon in the sea with giant waves. With the spear in hand, a water aura begins to form around the protagonist. Then he executes a perfect movement with the spear, creating a flow of blue energy. Everyone in the room is shocked and wonders what kind of martial arts prodigy he is. Liang comes out of a room and yells at the crowd to find out who learned the technique. Facing the bully, our hero stares him down with his spear in hand, ready for whatever comes. The purple-haired guy thinks he really learned it and needs to test if he is a genius. With that, he offers to give the young man some tips on his spear technique. Our protagonist accepts the challenge, and the two face off in the middle of the training room. A friend warns him not to be impulsive since the opponent is strong, but he says not to worry. In a combat stance, the guy asks the opponent to teach him and enlighten him with his technique. Calling the kid arrogant, the enemy attacks with the Raging Sea Spear at the micro level. With a calm expression on his face, our hero awaits the adversary's attack without moving. Then he counters with the same technique but reveals that his is already at the proficient level. The purple-haired guy is in complete shock and cannot believe what he just heard from the young man. The protagonist then demonstrates all his power with the spear technique at a higher level. The two spears clash with tremendous force, creating a massive wave of energy in the room. Being pushed back, the opponent wonders how he reached this level without being a martial artist. Our hero's eyes glow with a golden light as he overcomes the enemy's power. With a powerful strike, the purple-haired guy is thrown backward with no chance to defend himself. A notification alerts that he gained 32 martial points for defeating a stronger artist. On his knees on the ground, the opponent cannot believe someone learned the technique that fast. With a look of despair, he thinks of all the years he spent training so hard. Then he wonders what the point of it all was and charges at the protagonist with a punch. The punch is stopped inches away from the protagonist's face, who yells for him to stop that. At that moment, the instructor appears behind Lian, who is startled by the master's presence. The master then slaps the student and scolds him for not knowing how to handle defeat. With his face marked by the blow, the guy just stays there on the ground, unable to believe what happened. The instructor reflects that not even the greatest geniuses in the capital are as exaggerated as the young man. With that, he apologizes to our hero and says a lesson like that will do his disciple good. The protagonist is surprised and thinks that guy changes his attitude very fast. At night, our hero walks home thinking the day was exhausting but totally worth it. He looks at his status screen and sees he learned 2 new techniques and earned martial points. In front of the school, he thinks about the exams and that he needs a weapon because the rich kids already have theirs. The guy then decides he liked the spear and will stick with it for the school tests. But he sees the price and realizes that with what he has, it is not enough even for his aunt's medicine. Standing in front of a convenience store, the young man wonders if there's another way to make cash. Then he sees an ad recruiting martial artists to hunt beasts for good rewards. The idea of hunting beasts outside the city seems dangerous, but our hero considers the option. Later that night, the guy arrives at his building after a long day full of new experiences. Inside, he hears his aunt and uncle talking about not wanting to be a burden to the young man. At that moment, he walks in and announces he is home, receiving a warm greeting from his family. The guy then takes what his aunt was holding and says he will help, but she tells him to rest. He tells his uncle he can make money now and asks him to stop working to take care of his aunt. The uncle looks a bit embarrassed but gives a thumbs up and says he won't push himself too hard at work. His aunt smiles and explains his training will cost a lot, and they want to save for the future. The young man looks at the money and thinks his aunt and uncle won't rest if he doesn't get rich soon. With a determined expression, he decides he cannot let the opportunity to hunt beasts pass by. On the roof, he decides to increase his strength and puts in all his vitality points. A red ore explodes and his vitality reaches 95, putting him very close to being a martial artist. 2 days later, he is on the gym floor but has finally raised all his arts to perfection. Panting and sweaty, the guy thinks that with preparations complete, it is time to go on the hunt. On Saturday, he finally arrives at the martial artist base and complains the place is too far. Walking through the area, our hero reflects he has seen the place on TV, but it is his first time there. He is surprised because martial artists are rare, but in that place, they are everywhere. With a flyer in hand, the guy reads the reward table for each type of hunted beast. The young man makes a face when reading that to prove the hunt, one must remove the creature's left ear. He then sees a hunter at the counter and thinks his bag must be full of ears. Suddenly, someone yells for everyone to clear the way for a group that was arriving at the place. Then a blonde guy named Young Master Yu walks by with his men in a very arrogant manner. In the middle of the group, Su Hong recognizes the clothes and aura of the White Fox from the underground arena. Nearby, he hears hunters gossiping that the White Fox took a bad beating a few days ago. The protagonist continues to observe the group with a suspicious and very attentive look. At that moment, the so-called Young Master Yi turns around and smiles upon noticing he is being watched. He stares at the group with a serious look and understands he needs to be very careful there. Leaving the place, he thinks it is not just the beasts that are dangerous, but humans too. At the gate, a guard questions him if it is his first time going into the wild alone. The guard then just sighs and thinks that is just another ignorant kid with no fear. Stepping onto the grass, our hero finally enters the wild area outside the walled city. The young man finds himself surrounded by a dense forest full of tall and imposing trees. Determined to get what he wants, he swears he will return from that hunt with a full backpack. 2 hours pass as he walks through the forest without finding anything interesting. He leans against a tree and wonders if all the beasts in that area have already been taken down. With no other option, the guy decides to venture deeper into the forest to find something. Suddenly, a strange sound catches his attention, and he stops to try and identify the source. Before him appears a giant white wolf with red eyes and a very threatening appearance. He recognizes the beast from the books as an ethereal moon wolf at the initial level of rank 1. The creature then lets out a powerful roar that echoes throughout the forest around them. Next, the wolf leaps toward him with claws ready for a quick and lethal attack. The beast's claws glow with red energy as it tries to strike the protagonist. But the young man dodges nimbly and already prepares to strike back with a powerful counterattack. His fist begins to glow with golden energy, and electrical lightning wraps around his hand. He then lands a devastating punch on the side of the wolf using his thunder fist. The impact of the blow is so strong that the beast is thrown far away, spinning endlessly in the air. With his fist still glowing, he stands still in front of the giant wolf, which has fallen to the ground defeated. He looks at his own hand and thinks that fighting a monster is much more exciting than he imagined. The guy feels confident and thinks he can now face intermediate stage beasts with his current strength. Suddenly, a furious black bear of intermediate stage and rank 1 emerges from the shadows right behind the young man. The giant animal has a scar on its eye and looks ready to attack our hero at any moment. Right after, the protagonist is already over the bear's body and thinks he is safe if he doesn't provoke rank 2 beasts. With a knife in hand, he removes the creature's ear and happily thinks about the 3,000 he just earned. Then a system screen alerts him that he can now become a martial artist, and he gets very happy about it. With that, a purple aura explodes around the guy as he finally begins his evolution into a martial artist. While sitting, he senses a powerful aura and wonders what kind of fierce beast is nearby to be so strong. Curious about the situation, our hero decides to go take a look and dashes at high speed toward the energy. He then climbs a large rock to get a better view of what is happening just below. With a shocked look, he watches this scene and seems to not believe what he is seeing right in front of him. The young man then sees a giant black jade python surrounded by several hunters ready for battle. The snake attacks with its tail and hits one of the hunters directly, who yells in pain from the impact of the blow. The man is thrown far away and crashes hard into the rocks while the protagonist just watches everything from afar. Nearby, a purple-haired hunter looks annoyed with the situation and with the strength of that giant beast. The group's leader then leaps into the air at high speed to try and attack the serpent's head with his weapon. But the python is faster and counters with a whip of its tail to hit the hunter mid-air. The hunter blocks the strike at the last second and is surprised by that creature's incredible speed. The hunter is thrown far away by the force of the hit, and his weapon flies through the air. Right after, the man heavily hits the ground and sustains injuries in the middle of the forest. Su-hong kneels next to a fallen hunter and also feels the impact of the attack. With his hand, he wipes the corner of his mouth and realizes he was also grazed by the hit. He then takes the fallen man's spear and asks to borrow it to fight against the beast. Standing with the weapon in hand, the guy faces the giant python, ready for the big battle. The creature lets out a terrifying roar and prepares to attack the young man with its fangs. The protagonist reflects that it would take a whole team to take down a beast like that. But with his perfect arts, he already defeated a bear and is much more confident now. With a quick and firm step, our hero advances toward the serpent without any fear. He uses the void step and says he now has the skill to fight the creature. Next, the guy uses the raging sea spear at the perfect level to attack the animal. The tip of the spear glows and hits the python's scales directly with incredible force. The serpent screams in pain from the blow, and even one of its teeth breaks upon impact. The young man then uses the creature's body as a stepping stone to jump and prepare for another attack. With a steady hand, he holds the spear with all his strength for the next devastating strike. Surrounded by an aura of water, he prepares for another charge against the serpent. With a determined look, he shouts that he will attack again and won't give the beast a break. He then attacks once more with the spear, creating a powerful wave of blue energy. The strike hits the python's head perfectly, causing massive damage and creating sparks. With that, he moves at high speed around the creature, attacking from several different angles. The guy thinks that because of its size, he needs to wear the beast down little by little before the final strike. Then he narrowly dodges the serpent's tail, which whizzes right past his face. Wasting no time, the young man uses his Thunder Fist at the perfect level and attacks the snake with full force. Right after the attack, he retreats and thinks he needs to maintain a safe distance from the python to avoid getting caught. His strategy is to find an opening to attack again and then get away as fast as possible. The protagonist is panting and exhausted from the fight but knows this tactic is the safest for now. He notices the creature is reaching its limit and that a few more hits will be enough. With a shout of defiance, the guy prepares for the final showdown against the giant serpent and calls it out to fight. Suddenly, a strange noise catches his attention, and he stops what he is doing to look around. With a suspicious look, our hero wonders who could be there in that isolated spot. At that moment, a masked man with a flaming fist appears, laughing at the situation and stares at him. The stranger charges at the protagonist with a flaming and powerful punch. The strike hits him squarely, and our hero is thrown far away by the force of the impact. Lying on the ground out of breath, the guy coughs while trying to recover from the surprise attack. He turns around and sees a group of people approaching and asks who they are and what they want there. The group's leader is young Master Yi, who says they meet again and wants the python for himself. The group of hunters stares at the protagonist, who is on the ground at a clear numerical disadvantage. The blonde guy mocks him and says he thought the guy would be taken down for having the courage to leave the city alone. He continues saying the young man was lucky to find a giant python almost lifeless around there. Su-hong is confused and realizes the five are martial artists and that he cannot fight them all. One of the masked henchmen yells at the guy, ordering him to hand the serpent over to his master and leave. Looking down seriously, our hero seems to be gathering his strength for the upcoming fight. The young man's fist glows with lightning, and he challenges them, saying they only hit him because it was a surprise attack. With that, he charges at the henchman and hits him squarely with a devastating and powerful punch. The masked man is completely shocked by the terrible strength of that strike and cannot react. The impact of the punch is so strong that the big guy is thrown backward with no chance to defend himself. The henchman falls hard to the ground completely defeated, while the rest of the group just watches the scene. The blonde guy then recognizes the technique as the Vajra Fist and says he must be the famous Minotaur. The protagonist is then surprised to recognize the White Fox from the underground fighting arena. Angrily, young Master Yi says the guy was the first to humiliate him in front of so many people. He then gets furious and orders his men to take him down, and they all charge at our hero. With no other choice, the protagonist grabs the spear that was on the ground and prepares to flee the scene. With the spear, he throws himself off a cliff to escape, and the group leader yells for everyone to go after him. Once in the forest, one of the men warns them to be careful, because the place is dense and good for ambushes. One of the henchmen asks if they should be afraid of a single guy since they outnumber him. Suddenly, the protagonist appears at high speed behind the man who just spoke and surprises him. With his eyes glowing, our hero glares at him seriously, and the hunter is completely paralyzed. With a quick and precise strike, the guy hits the enemy squarely on the neck with the side of his hand. The hunter then falls to the ground with his neck injured and no chance to fight back. Young Master Yi gets annoyed and wonders how the guy can be so fast and skilled. A henchman recognizes the technique as the Thunder Fist and says not even rank 3 artists master it. The leader then yells for them to shut up and cannot believe the young man has 2 perfect techniques. Hidden Su-hong thinks that if he weren't tired from the fight with the python, he could defeat them head on. With that, he decides he will take them down one by one and throws his spear with full force at them. The weapon crashes into the ground very close to the group, and everyone is startled by the sudden and unexpected attack. Jumping over one of the henchmen, our hero surprises him with a powerful attack from above. He then lands a devastating blow on the enemy, who has no time to react to the young man's surprise attack. The man falls to the ground entirely defeated while his colleagues watch the scene completely shocked. The last henchman says the young man is too strong and they should flee, but the blonde guy does not agree with that. Furious, young Master Yi ignores his henchman's advice and says he needs to eliminate that guy today. At that moment, our hero appears behind the last henchman who is distracted by the situation and stares at him. With a quick and accurate attack, he hits the enemy from behind, taken completely by surprise. The blonde guy is stunned and does not understand how the guy managed to get so much stronger in just a few days. The protagonist then runs past his enemy, who watches him with a look of pure hate and anger. Angrily, young Master Yi attacks the air and complains he could not hit the young man in time. Su Hong then appears behind the enemy and says it is finally his turn to fight him. The blonde turns around and counters, telling the guy not to think he has won the fight just yet. But our hero uses the void-shattering finger and stops the enemy's attack quite easily. The energy of the strike spreads through the forest, and the blonde is shocked by the protagonist's power. The energy of the blow is so strong it blows a tree in half with a devastating impact. With that, the blonde defends against several attacks of the same technique that our hero unleashes non-stop. The protagonist is surprised by the power of that skill and thinks it must be Class B. Angrily, the enemy says he memorized the young man's face and that he will go after his whole family. This threat makes our hero furious, and he repeats the question with a dark look on his face. Wearing a mask to hide his face, he advances with the spear for a fast and lethal attack. The adversary tries to intimidate him and says his uncle is a supervisor at the martial artist's base. But our hero appears from behind him with his fist glowing red, ready for the strike. With a smile, he says he liked the enemy more when he was acting arrogant. Next, the guy lands a powerful punch right on the blonde's face, who is unable to defend himself. Without giving the enemy time to breathe, he finishes with a devastating kick to his chin. Young Master Yi is then thrown far away and falls off the cliff with no chance to save himself. Panting and tired, our hero stands observing the area after the intense battle. Surrounded by a red aura, he says the enemy should not have used his family to threaten him. Fallen on the ground, the opponent cannot believe the young man's strength and says he is not even a martial artist. Then the blonde looks behind the guy and panics when he sees the giant python watching everything. With a face full of fear, the enemy stares at the giant beast, unable to believe what is happening. The serpent's tail then comes down hard and hits the adversary with crushing force. The guy realizes he spent too much time fighting and that the python recovered its stamina in the meantime. Far away, the other hunters wonder where their master is and if he defeated the young man. One of the remaining hunters looks at the scene with a look of surprise and caution. Our hero then emerges from the forest, and the hunters yell that he finally came out and that they will not forgive him. But suddenly, the giant python appears behind the guy, and everyone is shocked by the beast's presence. The snake then attacks one of the men, and the protagonist earns 30 points for an indirect takedown. Next, the serpent's tail hits another hunter, and the guy earns another 30 martial points. He turns to the creature and realizes the situation is getting more and more dangerous for everyone there. With the points he earned, he realizes he can now become a martial artist and leaps over the python. He then dodges the beast's attacks and looks for a safe place to evolve without being interrupted. Nearby, the young man spots a cave and decides that is the perfect place for what he needs to do. With that, he jumps toward the cave entrance with the giant serpent right behind him on his tail. The python then crashes hard into the cave entrance, kicking up a large cloud of dust in the area. Once inside the cave, our hero turns around and faces the creature that watches him with a furious look. The snake then dives into the darkness of the cave and charges at the protagonist with its mouth wide open. He then opens his status screen and sees he has 504 martial points to use. With this, the guy starts to increase his vitality as fast as he can to evolve right away. A red aura surrounds him, and he feels his body getting hot as if he had magma in his veins. The screen then shows his vitality reached 100 while the python prepares to attack. With that, he finally becomes a level 1 martial artist, and a red aura explodes around him. He then clenches his fist, which glows with powerful energy and intense red lightning. With his new power, he faces the python, which backs away in fear and warns that it is now his turn to strike. The young man stares at the creature with his eyes glowing red and prepares a powerful counterattack. With this, the giant serpent feels the impact of the guy's new strength and retreats for a moment. But the creature recovers and shoots a beam of golden energy from its mouth at our hero. The python is furious about the injury and stares at the protagonist with a look full of hate and rage. With a yell, Sohong advances using the Vajra fist, with his fist glowing intensely. He then jumps toward the giant snake's head to land a direct and accurate blow. The red energy from his punch explodes upon hitting the beast's scales with devastating force. Even after getting hurt, he stands his ground and remains focused on the combat. He then picks up a weapon that was on the ground and prepares for a top-down attack. With a battle cry, the guy comes down hard and strikes the serpent with blue energy. The creature screams in pain as blue electricity runs through its entire body non-stop. Without giving the beast time to breathe, he already prepares his Roshing Thunder Fist to attack. The strike squarely hits the python's head, and it screams in pain from the overwhelming impact. The force of the punch is so great that the animal's head is smashed hard against the ground. A large cloud of dust rises in the area and visibility becomes completely zero. With the beast defeated, he earns 92 points and thinks he can now fight it head on. He sits down and thinks that to make money, he needs to cut off the ear, but snakes don't have ears. After the battle, he leaves the place, and we see young Master Yi's body lying nearby. Su-hong walks past his defeated enemy with a calm expression and his spear in hand. The fallen blonde says he got off easy, and it seems the story between them is not over yet. Our hero then searches the blonde's belongings and thinks about taking the martial technique he used in the fight. With this, he finds a book called Void Shattering Finger and is surprised by what he found. At night, the guy lights a fire near the python's body so he can rest safely. He then hides in a cave so he can study the new skill he got in the forest. By the fire, he thinks he has already memorized the book and will now use the system to master the technique. Inside a digital space, a version of himself appears in front of him to start the training. The other version attacks him with a serious look, and our hero prepares to learn the new skill. He starts training the technique, and the mastery percentage goes up very fast on his screen. A beam of light shoots from his finger, and the system screen shows he has already reached 1% of the basics. He coughs a little and thinks about testing the power of that new rank beast skill on some monster. 3 days later, our hero encounters a giant bear with red eyes ready to attack. Wasting no time, the guy uses his Void Shattering Finger and attacks the beast with a blue energy beam. He finally reaches the perfect level of the technique and thinks it is about time to return to the base. With that, the protagonist finally arrives back at the large and imposing martial artist's base. Nearby, he sees a crowd and hears that the Thunder Squad made 230,000 on a hunt. Someone comments that all the beasts were level 1 and some were advanced stage. He then goes to the counter, and the woman announces he got 406,000 coins in total. The guy gets tense and thinks he took down too many beasts and therefore drew too much attention to himself. He then goes on his way through the city and passes by a building that looks like a school or something similar. Suddenly, he sees a crowd and hears people wondering if the base was attacked by an enemy. Amidst the confusion, a man in a suit appears and orders the entire base to be locked down immediately. Another guy approaches and asks Supervisor Yi the reason for all that commotion in the place. With a furious shout, the supervisor reveals this nephew and his 4 men were all taken down. The people in the crowd are shocked by the news and cannot believe a group of 5 was defeated. But some are happy and comment that young Master Yi was trouble and got what he deserved. The blonde's uncle then says a rank B skill is missing and everyone there will be searched because of it. Su-hong thinks the bodies were attacked by the python, so no one will suspect him. He then notices the supervisor and his men coming toward him with a very unfriendly expression. With this, our hero starts to wonder if by some chance they are already suspecting him. The crowd parts, and the guy comes face to face with the supervisor and his henchmen staring at him. The man then says he heard the young man hunted beasts worth 400,000 coins all by himself. A woman questions him and says he must have robbed young Master Yi, ordering them to search him. 2 guards with flaming fists approach and warn him not to resist and make the situation worse. Unfazed, our hero puts his hand on his spear and prepares for what is to come. With a quick movement, he points his weapon at the guards, who are shocked by his speed. He then says he is a student from school number 1, asks if they really want to search him. The supervisor thinks the principal of that school is protective of his students and that would be a problem. He reflects that if the guy really is a genius and they offend him, it might turn out to be a mistake. The man says the family's technique was stolen and asks for cooperation, but Su-hong doesn't seem to care. Then, to avoid more trouble, the supervisor offers 10,000 coins as compensation for the search. With a confident look, he makes a counter offer and demands 30,000 coins to cooperate with the search. He then allows the search and asks them to search carefully to avoid any false accusations. The guard reports he found nothing, and the supervisor orders them to pay the guy and let him go. With a smile, our hero thinks he dodged a huge problem by burning the book in time. He then leaves and decides to go to the Martial Artists Association to register as fast as possible. Shortly after, the protagonist is already in a luxurious hotel room at the martial artist's base. Sitting on the bed, he opens his status screen and sees he has 534 martial points. The guy then calculates that to reach the intermediate stage of rank 1, he would need 200 vitality. He notes he hasn't improved his spirit or his mortal frame yet, and decides to use his points for that. With that, he starts investing in his spirit but does not feel any major difference in his power. Next, the young man spends his points on the mortal frame and feels a clear increase in his strength. After spending all his points, he analyzes his new attributes and focuses on evolving the other areas. A red aura then explodes and his body gets massive as he feels infinite power. But soon after, the energy starts to decrease and his muscles slowly return to normal. He sighs in relief and thinks it would be very hard to explain his muscular form to people. An hour later, the guy is already in front of the large Martial Artists Association building. At the reception, he says he came for the evaluation, and the lady informs him someone will accompany him shortly. A staff member then guides him and explains that to pass, he needs to have 100 vitality and 1,000 power. In the hallway, 2 men comment that the young man is alone and must be there just to test his luck. Suddenly, our hero's eye shines upon noticing something or someone in the middle of that hallway. In the testing room, a man layman's having failed the evaluation by very little and looks very frustrated. Next, a young man named Leming passes the vitality test with a score of 105. He then gets ready in front of a machine for his next combat power evaluation. With a battle cry, the man lands a powerful punch on the testing machine with all his strength. The scoreboard then shows the result of 1,763, and he passes the test. The crowd is impressed and says he is a disciple of the famous Furious Thunder Dojo. Watching everything, our hero sees a man with a boy and wonders how many disciples he has. The aforementioned guy then stares at the protagonist and says with a smile that he is the next to be tested. He brags saying he is a genius and that Su-hong cannot compare to him even being the same age. But the arrogant boy is shocked and wonders if the vitality tester is broken. The scoreboard shows 123 vitality, and the rival yells that this is impossible to happen. He tries to calm down and thinks what really matters is combat power and not vitality. The instructor then announces the start of the test, and our hero takes his stance in front of the combat machine. He thinks 40% of his strength should be enough to pass the test without a problem. But just to be sure, he decides to use 50% of his power and clenches his fist firmly. With that, the young man lands a devastating punch on the machine with entirely incredible force. The impact is so strong that the top part of the power tester is thrown far away. The strike completely breaks the machine, which releases sparks and smoke everywhere. Everyone is in shock, and the rival realizes he didn't even use a martial art for that attack. The broken scoreboard then shows the number 3004, and people cannot believe that power. From a VIP box, a man points at our hero and says that boy is a real monster. Another man next to him then comments that since it is that guy, everything is easily explained. Far away in a luxurious room, a blonde woman is sitting at her desk looking bored. The president complains that another city revealed a genius and she might end up losing her job. Suddenly, a man runs into her room and yells that a monster appeared in the evaluation. She is shocked to hear he reached 3,000 power using only his body's physical strength. Meanwhile, in the association's main hall, our hero walks calmly through the busy place. A man then offers to take him to the second floor to register his artist identity. But a woman appears at the top of the stairs and says that from there on, she will personally take care of the guy. It was the association's president, who appears with a serious look and a very intimidating presence. She introduces herself as Wu Lingxian and, with a piercing look, orders the protagonist to follow her. He obeys and thinks she is different from the rumors about the rank 5 martial artist. Shortly after, the two are in the president's office, which is very large and quite luxurious. She says his school's principal was hiding a genius and playing the victim before. The young man gets nervous and asks why she brought him there since he only wanted to register and leave. With a smile, she calms him down and says her subordinates are already taking care of all the paperwork. The woman then says she will personally teach him the guidance technique and asks a question. He explains they are used to absorb spiritual energy and strengthen the body with attributes. She then shows a flame in her hand and says her technique mainly absorbs fire energy. The president shows her flaming fist and explains that this strengthens her attacks with the attribute. The president continues and says that if he projects the attack outward, he can even increase its range. Su-hong is surprised and wonders if guidance techniques can be used for attacking. She then explains there are 7 attributes and that thunder, metal, and fire are the strongest in a fight. But the woman warns that the technique he can practice depends on his own compatibility. With that, she grabs a crystal ball and explains normal artists have 30% and she has 80%. Then the blonde hands over the object and says she expects a genius like him to exceed 90%. The guy thinks that if the president only has 80%, then 90 would be a huge exaggeration. Suddenly, a very bright red light explodes from the crystal ball and illuminates the entire office. The woman is shocked and yells that his compatibility with the fire attribute is 100%. She then holds him and explains that this means he can absorb all the energy without losing anything. The president reveals that with her 80%, she loses energy and still became rank 5. With that, the lady says the young man's future achievements will be much greater than hers one day. Our hero thinks the fire attribute is not bad, but he still prefers thunder. At that moment, the crystal ball in his hands begins to glow with intense golden lightning. The object is now filled with the power of thunder, and the president watches the scene in disbelief. The young man then informs the woman that his compatibility with thunder also seems to be total. Shocked, she wonders what kind of monster he is to have 2 attributes at 100% power. To make things crazier, he says the wind attribute is also perfect, and the ball turns green. A few minutes later, the president is sprawled on the couch, completely exhausted by so many emotions. She then says that is impossible and all his attributes are perfect, thinking she is dreaming. The president thinks she considered herself a genius for being rank 5 at only 30 years old. But she realizes that when facing an opponent who defies logic, she is just a regular person. So to defeat an existence outside the norm, one needs another that is also powerful. With this, she understands that only someone beyond common sense can win these battles. The blonde then realizes the protagonist is one of those existences normal people do not understand. Su-hong thinks he has 7 perfect attributes, and it would be a waste to focus on just one. He then asks the president for a copy of the guidance techniques for all 7 attributes. The woman explains human energy is limited and in the past, those who tried never evolved. The guy says he will test them all and then decide, and the blonde agrees but asks him not to mess around. She then changes the subject and asks about the school's monthly exam that is coming up soon. The president explains a war might break out and nations are creating genius camps. With that, the lady offers a spot if he takes first place in the exam, and he gets thoughtful. The young man remembers he lost his family in the last war, and so he accepts the offer right away. He swears he will not let that tragedy happen again, and will get stronger to protect everyone. Shortly after, our hero finally arrives at his home to give the great news to everyone. Once inside, he shows his new ID and tells his aunt and uncle he became a martial artist. The couple is very emotional with the news and says their nephew has a bright future. The guy says his uncle can now stop working, and the man agrees he is the pillar of the family. With a confident smile, the protagonist promises himself he will take care of everyone from now on. Later that same night, the young man starts training surrounded by an aura of intense fire. His eyes glow with an intense orange energy while he fully focuses on his training. With his flaming fist, the guy begins to practice the new fire attribute guidance technique. Hot steam then starts coming out of his hand as he tests the power of that new skill. He wonders if that is the basic mastery of the technique and why it doesn't seem to have any power. With that, our hero opens his status screen and sees the guidance technique section has appeared there. The screen shows the skill is at level 1, and he finds it odd because the president didn't mention levels. The protagonist then realizes perhaps only he can evolve techniques using his system. So he wonders if to improve the new skill he also needs to use his martial points. But the system says he has no points, and the young man decides to cultivate the rest and think about it later. The guy goes back to meditating and focuses on learning all the other 6 guidance techniques. Hours later, he realizes the energies of the 7 attributes are repelling each other inside his body. Suhong then understands why that genius from the past never managed to evolve training all 7. He notes that even having all 7 energies in his body, he can only use one at a time individually. With this, the young man decides to try to forcefully use a second attribute to see what might happen. The 2 attributes then violently clash and end up dissipating in a small explosion. But he thinks thunder and fire are similar and wonders if by any chance they cannot be merged. A large explosion of yellow energy happens in his hand, and he realizes that is not going to work. Even so, the guy does not give up and spends the whole night trying to merge the 2 powers non-stop. The day finally dawns, and the building remains quiet after a long night of hard training. Exhausted, he keeps trying and thinks he just needs a little bit more to finally succeed. With a furious shout, he forces the fusion of the 2 powers with all his remaining energy. Finally, fire and thunder begin to unite in his hand, forming a new, powerful energy. Exhausted, he says that after a whole night, he finally managed to merge the attributes. With a confident smile, the young man decides it is time to go out and test his new power. Shortly after, he arrives at the city's martial arts plaza, which is completely empty. The guy then takes his position in front of a rank 3 power tester, so he won't break it. He thinks that last time he used 50% and decides to test it with only 30% strength. The scoreboard shows 2,343, and he is surprised by the power increase. Our hero then realizes that the power of thunder alone is extremely strong. So he wonders what the combined power of thunder and fire together would be. With that, the young man lands a devastating punch on the machine with his newly fused energy. The scoreboard breaks the 3,000 mark, and Suhong is shocked by the result of that test. He thinks he surpassed a rank 1 artist even with low vitality and using only 30%. The guy then imagines what the power would be if he could merge all 7 attributes at once. With this, he decides to go home and try to merge 3 attributes at the same time. But the difficulty of merging 3 attributes proves to be much higher than he previously imagined. Lying on the floor, he thinks that even trying several combinations, he hasn't made any progress. Then he wonders if leveling up the techniques would help him merge the attributes. The next day, all the students from school number 1 are gathered for the monthly exam. The principal then announces that due to the war, a genius camp will be created starting that year. He explains the camp has many resources and the top 3 students from the exam will participate. One student gets excited and says the instructors are rank 7 while the principal is only rank 3. The protagonist is confused because the president said he needed first place to go. A friend points out that 2 students became martial artists, and Suhong is surprised by the news. The buddy explains the principal gave private lessons to the talented ones, and the 2 already passed 100 vitality. One of the rivals says he will show who the real genius is, and the other provokes him with a smile. Far away, the principal asks a man if he has found the genius of the 9 Echo Thunder Fist yet. Suddenly, the 2 turn around upon hearing a voice approaching them with a mocking tone. A man in a suit appears and asks the principal why he has such a sad and serious face. He then says the principal's students are bad and challenges him to a fight between their best students. The principal thinks the man just wants to humiliate him, but if he refuses, it will look like he has no talent. The rival continues the provocation and says he understands if he refuses because his students are indeed weak. Suddenly, one of the disciples points at the crowd and warns the master that Suhong is right there. The master then looks at the crowd and tries to find the guy his disciple pointed at. The disciple then recognizes our hero and calls him a little monster with a look of fear and surprise. With that, the master is shocked to realize that boy is actually a student at that school. He thinks his disciples wouldn't stand a chance against the young man, and it would be better to avoid the fight. Out of fear, the man changes his mind and says he was joking and that his disciples cannot compare. The principal and his colleague are furious about the mockery and cannot believe the audacity of those guys. The scene then cuts to the exam arena, and the announcer calls the start of the first match of the day. A classmate warns him his first opponent is a quasi-martial artist and that he wasn't very lucky. The adversary then faces him in the arena and asks if he is going to step down on his own to avoid fighting. With a mocking smile, the enemy asks if he prefers that he defeats him in front of everyone instead. But our hero lands a devastating kick on the opponent and throws him high into the air with a single strike. The guy then crashes hard onto the arena floor and is defeated in seconds by the surprise attack. In the audience, everyone is shocked and wonders since when the protagonist got so strong. Surrounded by an aura of power, he stands still in the arena after defeating the enemy with a single move. Shortly after, he wins another fight, and the crowd wonders if he isn't already a rank 3 artist. The principal wonders where the young man came from and regrets not noticing him in his private classes. He blames himself for not seeing the guy's talent, but the other teacher feels like he already knows him. The two then comment that the semifinal between the school's other 2 geniuses is about to start. In the arena, the 2 fighters exchange blows at high speed, and the battle seems quite even. One of the students challenges the other to use his finishing move and advances with a water fist to attack. With a quick and precise movement, he manages to block the adversary's punch and prepares his counter. The rival then claims he is the school's #1 and counters with a powerful fire fist. The audience is shocked because they didn't know he could project his fire attribute in a fight. But the other fighter scoffs and says that is nothing, also projecting his own attribute. Everyone is surprised again because his metal attribute is even stronger in combat than fire. With a smile, he says he can do more and summons several metal fists for the attack. The enemy gets scared facing the adversary's 5-sound thunder fist technique. With this, the guy hits the adversary with his technique and defeats him with a sequence of blows. The teachers comment the boy was hiding his strength and mastered the technique in 10 days. They then say Su Hong has no chance in the finals, and it would be a shame he doesn't know the technique. But another teacher shows up and bets 50,000 on our hero's victory, and the others accept. Then the final matches begin, and the 2 fighters face each other in the arena ready for combat. The adversary says the young man was lucky to reach the finals, and that he didn't have to fight him before. Our hero thinks he has hunted too many beasts and finally found an opponent worth fighting. The rival says since he is in the finals, he can keep the title of the school's second best. With a yell, the opponent says first place is his and charges in with a fast attack. He says he only needs 1 strike to show the difference and uses his metal fist technique. The audience is shocked and says the fight is over because Su Hong has no way to defend against the strike. But with his eyes glowing orange, our hero prepares to counter the enemy's attack. Using his fire power, he says he really wanted to test the physical limits of his body. Everyone gets scared and yells that the guy went crazy and someone needs to save him from that attack. The two then trade a sequence of powerful punches at high speed in the middle of the fighting arena. The rival's metal fist clashes against our hero's fire fist with a massive impact. The adversary is stunned and cannot believe the young man neutralized his technique with just 5 punches. Without giving the enemy time to breathe, the protagonist continues with a flurry of rapid strikes. The rival wonders if the young man is a monster because every one of his punches is too heavy for him. The spectators cannot believe it and comment he fought on equal terms without using martial arts. The principal says he must have a special physique because his strength is very exaggerated and his school created a genius. But the other teacher comments the young man's strength is not an advantage because Li Tu has already condensed his attribute. Back in the arena, our hero continues to pressure the opponent and pushes him back with his punches. Angrily, the adversary yells at him not to be arrogant and says the only winner of the fight will be him. Then he charges with everything and challenges the protagonist to defeat him if he is really capable. Our hero thinks he wanted to test his physical strength, but his rival didn't hold back and went all out. Seeing the enemy used all his power, he decides he will have to put in a little effort too. With that, the guy advances to attack, enveloped in a powerful aura of combined thunder and fire. The rival is completely shocked and yells that the young man can also project an attribute in the fight. In the audience, the teachers fall to the ground and cannot believe what they just saw in that arena. They wonder how he mastered the thunder attribute and say his talent is terrifying. The two energies then clash in the middle of the arena in a devastating explosion of power. The rival realizes the protagonist's lightning attribute is much stronger than his metal one. With a confident smile, Su Hong says since he showed his ultimate move, now it is his turn. He then warns he will also show his supreme move and prepares his Thunder Fist. Our hero hits the adversary with a sequence of devastating punches and defeats him right away. Fallen on the ground, the rival wonders how it is possible that he used the technique's 9 sounds. The dust settles, and the protagonist stands in the arena as the grand winner of the exam finals. In the audience, everyone goes dead silent and completely shocked by the result of that battle. They yell that Suhong won and used the 9-sound thunder fist at the perfection stage. The principal yells that the young man is the dragon of their city and the genius everyone was looking for before. With that, the teacher says a prodigy like him will shock the geniuses at the training camp. He then compares the guy to a goldfish turning into a dragon and says the city is too small for him. The principal agrees and says the boy is a dragon destined to reach great heights in the future. Later that day, our hero finally goes back home to give the great news. Already in the kitchen, he tells them he got first place in the exam, and his uncle asks how the day was. The man is happy and asks if this means he is going to the training camp, and the young man confirms. But suddenly, their celebration is interrupted by a loud knock on the house door. An unknown woman appears at the door and asks if this Suhong guy lives there. The protagonist then opens the door and asks the woman what she wants and who she is. She introduces herself as the mother of the boy who came in fourth and wants to discuss his spot. The woman then offers 30,000 for the young man to give up his spot so her son can go. Our hero and his family are not impressed at all by that woman's attitude. Angrily, she says the camp is for nurturing geniuses for the war and the competition is cruel there. She goes on and says everyone uses elixirs and high-level martial arts and that he should quit. Worried, his aunt asks if what the woman said is true and if the place is really dangerous. His uncle tries to calm his wife down, as she is very worried about their nephew's safety. Then the man looks at the young man and asks if he can guarantee he will be safe in that place. With a determined look, our hero answers that he can indeed guarantee his own safety. His uncle then tells the woman he believes in him, and if he doesn't trust his family, who will he trust? His uncle then sends the woman away and slams the door in the face of that opportunist. Furious, the woman walks away yelling that he will be eliminated from the camp anyway. Suhong then apologizes for not telling them about the dangers, but his uncle says it's okay. The man says his nephew is more polite, and since he has decided he will support him on his journey. But his aunt smacks him and tells the young man not to worry about rank and just stay safe. With a smile on his face, the guy agrees with his aunt and promises to be very careful over there. Later that same night, our hero goes up to the building's roof to train a bit. He thinks his aunt and uncle must be worried, and he needs to get stronger to protect them. With that, he opens his status screen and sees he has 285 martial points. The young man decides that to face the geniuses, he needs to prioritize his physical combat power, so the protagonist spends all his points to increase the level of his mortal frame. Exhausted, he sees his frame went up to 64% and wonders what comes next. But suddenly, he notices his guidance techniques went up to level 2 and gets confused. He wonders if the techniques level up just with normal cultivation without needing anything else. With this, the guy decides to test his theory and tries to evolve the two skills once more. The day finally dawns in the city after a long night of intense and focused training. With his eyes glowing with intense energy, he finally finishes his cultivation session. The two guidance techniques reach level 3, and an immense power flows through his body. He sees his vitality increase by 3 points and is surprised by that unexpected harvest. Finally, the day to leave arrives, and he says goodbye to his aunt and uncle, who ask him to take care. His uncle tells him not to think about bad things and to bring back first place, and he says goodbye. As the guy walks away, the couple watches him with a mix of pride and worry in their eyes. His aunt mentions her husband is also worried, and he says he just didn't want to worry his nephew. Alone on the street, the protagonist walks with his weapon case toward his final destination. With a determined look, he thinks about everything he needs to do to protect his beloved family. But suddenly, a red sports car brakes sharply in front of him and blocks his way. Inside the vehicle, President Wu stares at him through her sunglasses and tells him to get in quickly. Shortly after, the two are speeding down the highway toward the training camp. The trip goes smoothly as they cut through the road toward the distant mountains. Then the young man asks the woman why she picked him up, and if she needed anything from him. The blonde explains she has some warnings about the camp because she knows the profile of some people there. She says there are monsters that are already advanced stage rank 1 and are close to rank 2. The woman also warns that these people have already mastered Class B martial skills at the very least. He thinks he isn't afraid of their skills because with his system, he can learn any of them. She says his talent is the best, but he lacks resources and shouldn't let challenges get him down. With a confident smile, the guy thanks her for the advice and says he understood everything she said. The president thinks he is very calm, and she doesn't need to worry about his mentality. Finally, they reach the Tianlin mountain range and take a van to the camp location. A student gets scared by the beasts, but the teacher calms him down and says the place is supervised. Our hero thinks the place has energy and beast kings comparable to rank 7 grandmasters. He also thinks the competition among the beasts is brutal, and the animals there are very strong. The beasts are so strong that not even a rank 2 martial artist would dare enter there alone. Meanwhile, the van keeps speeding down the road surrounded by the dense forest. Suddenly, several pairs of red eyes appear in the darkness and start staring at the vehicle. With that, one of the students says he feels watched and fears a beast might attack them by surprise. But our hero thinks the competition at the camp will be brutal, and he is actually enjoying it. Finally, they arrive at the camp and see several other young geniuses gathered there at the entrance. One of the classmates then wonders what the strength level of those people already there is. By their appearance, all the other participants look like very experienced and confident fighters. The protagonist's two friends feel a bit intimidated by the presence of so many strong geniuses. But our hero is not shaken at all and faces everyone with a very confident smile. With that, he simply calls his friends to come with him and walks into the camp without fear. But suddenly, a hand appears in front of them and stops them from walking further into the camp. The man explains they need to wait for everyone for the entrance exam, and the young man is surprised. Suddenly, a student complains that the members of big families are making everyone wait for them. At that moment, a fleet of luxury cars arrives at the camp bringing the new participants. Out of the car doors come several youths who seem to be from very rich and powerful families. The crowd comments on the city lord's son and the other two geniuses who arrived with him. Then the trio of new geniuses walks through the camp surrounded by their private guards. The group of newcomers stops right in front of our hero and the other students to stare at them closely. Our hero thinks those are the geniuses the president mentioned and he is going to test their strength. Then the instructor announces everyone has arrived and he will explain the rules for the entrance exam. He explains the training ground is 30 kilometers away, deep inside the Great Mountain Range. The man shows a token and warns that to enter the camp, they need to take one from the beasts. A classmate worries because 30 kilometers in 8 hours in those mountains could be fatal. But the protagonist finds that simple and thinks he will have plenty of time to hunt and get points. A student asks about the strongest beasts, and the man says they will be eliminated but will be saved. With that, the students complain out loud and say the exam isn't fair and relies too much on luck. The instructor yells that the world isn't fair and asks if they will complain when they fall in war. He then warns that to avoid risks, they must act with caution and that is the law of war. One of the newcomers then mocks them and says if they are afraid of falling, they better quit, calling them trash. Angrily, the student challenges him to a fight and tells him to repeat what he said if he has the guts. But the instructor warns that fights are forbidden there, but on the mountain they can do whatever they want. With a mocking look, the newcomer attacks the other student with a thunder strike to intimidate him. The protagonist thinks the camp is cruel and with these rules, half the students will be eliminated. With a smile, he then thinks that if he fights them all, he can earn a lot of martial points. The instructor gets tired of the chatter and pushes a button to finally start the entrance exam. At the signal, all the students dash into the forest to begin the hunt for the tokens. Once inside the forest, the students run at high speed along the trails to distance themselves. Then the newcomer starts chasing the student who challenged him and yells he will eliminate him right now. The two students face off and start trading punches with their elemental energies activated. Then one of them uses a club and hits the adversary with a powerful strike to try to finish the fight. But the other counters with a sequence of energy punches and hits the opponent multiple times non-stop. The exchange of blows continues at high speed, and the two seem to be on the same power level. From afar, the protagonist watches the fight and thinks the geniuses aren't as strong as the rumors said. He then decides to leave and hunt high-level beasts instead of wasting time with that fight. But their brawl catches his attention when one of them starts insulting the other for being poor. The guy continues the insults and says training hard is useless because a commoner will always be a commoner. With a dark smile, our hero decides he won't let those free martial points slip away. He then appears in front of the two and, with a calm voice, asks them to stop fighting right away. With a club on his shoulder, he tells the two to stop the fight and come play with him instead. The newcomer gets annoyed and threatens to beat him up too for meddling in their fight like a commoner. The young man says they got it wrong and suggests the two team up to fight him at the same time. Furious, the student yells he is asking to fall and charges at him with a direct attack. Without even moving, our hero just prepares his fist to counter the adversary's attack. With a single devastating punch, he defeats the opponent and throws him far away with immense force. The guy screams in pain as he is thrown back by the overwhelming power of that surprise hit. Next, he uses his spear and fires an energy attack toward the second opponent. The newcomer is in shock and cannot believe he defeated a genius of the same level with one hit. In the blink of an eye, the protagonist appears in front of the enemy and says it is now his turn. The opponent is terrified and cannot react seeing the protagonist's speed and power. Wasting no time, our hero attacks with his club and lands a fatal blow on the second rival. The guy is thrown far away by the impact and falls to the ground completely defeated by the attack. With both on the ground, he says this is what happens when you look down on common cultivators. In a control room, the instructors are shocked to see the young man defeat the two geniuses alone. One of them asks if the two were eliminated, but the other says the evaluation continues for them. Back in the forest, one of the defeated starts to regain consciousness after the hero's strike. In a lot of pain, he puts his hand to his face and complains his entire body is hurting a lot now. At that, the other youth also wakes up and pushes him away while trying to get up from the ground. Angrily, he yells he was never so humiliated and that he will get revenge on the guy who attacked them. The other agrees and says if he hadn't underestimated the kid, he never would have lost the fight. Then the two stare at each other and seem to reach a mutual agreement about the situation. They apologize and admit the young man is strong and they shouldn't have mocked our hero. With that, the two decide to take revenge and will use the wooden club to take out their anger on him. Far away, Su Hong runs through the forest with his spear looking for beasts to hunt and earn points. He is entirely focused on his goal and couldn't care less about the two he left behind. Suddenly, he comes across a herd of giant boars and wonders how many groups he has already met. The beasts stare at him with red eyes and look ready to attack at any moment with their tusks. Without hesitation, the massive boars charge at the protagonist in a very powerful rush. But with his eyes glowing, he uses his Nango Thunder Fist and attacks all the beasts. With his power, he defeats all the beasts with a sequence of blows, ending the combat. He then thinks the martial points are decreasing as he gets stronger and evolves. So the guy decides he needs to hurry and find a token to pass the entrance exam. He wonders if any of the 12 beasts he defeated earlier had one of the test tokens. After searching, he realizes tokens only appear on higher level beasts in the forest. With that, half an hour later, our hero continues his search deep inside the great forest. The young man notices he can no longer find low-level beasts like at the start of the exam. But suddenly, a massive black tiger appears and charges at him with a surprise attack. With a smile, he gets ready to fight and says he finally found a high-level beast. Using his piercing finger technique, he attacks the tiger with a powerful energy beam. The creature feels the impact of the blow and roars in pain with its mouth injured by the guy's attack. With this, the animal is stunned and falls to the ground, unable to move for a moment. Wasting no time, our hero spins his spear and prepares to deliver the finishing blow. Then he finishes the beast with a powerful attack and ends the fight once and for all. He thinks that with his current strength, taking down a high-level rank 1 beast was quite easy. Then the guy starts searching the animal's body, hoping the token is in there. He finds the item in the beast's stomach and thinks it took him almost 3 hours to find just one. The young man realizes the deeper he goes, the fewer beasts appear, but their rank increases. He thinks hunting low-level beasts on the outskirts might yield more points in the end. With that, our hero decides that instead of quality, he will focus on the quantity of beasts. He thinks that with 5 hours left, he needs to gather points to evolve his body to the max. With this, he starts a frantic hunt and defeats several beasts on his path through the forest. The guy leaves a trail of victory and takes down dozens of animals in search of martial points. Suddenly, a giant bear attacks him, but he isn't intimidated and prepares for combat. Using all his strength, the young man counters the beast attack with a powerful and direct punch. He thinks that after taking down so many beasts, he finally found a mid-level one to fight. Then the protagonist attacks the bear with his fire fist and hits it with a devastating strike. The creature roars in pain and cannot withstand the overwhelming power of our hero's attack. In the B-sides, the young man's reflection shows all his determination to win that fight. With a final punch, he hits the animal squarely and throws it far away with a lot of force. The impact of the blow is so strong that the bear is thrown against a tree, destroying it instantly. He realizes that with his body at 60%, he can defeat beasts using only physical strength. On his screen, he sees he earned 254 points and is 100 short of the max. With his spear in hand, he thinks that with 3 hours remaining, he needs to get more points. Suddenly, a deafening noise echoes through the entire forest and catches the guy's attention. He looks up at the sky and wonders where that strange sound he just heard came from. A massive golden bird appears in the sky, and he wonders if it's the legendary Beast King, the Golden Rock. The creature then lets out a powerful cry and releases a massive amount of energy into the sky. The beast's power is frightening, and a simple flap of its wings creates a massive shockwave. The shockwave is so strong it destroys the surrounding trees with incredible ease. With that, the guy is thrown far away by the shockwave and wonders what kind of beast that is. He thinks he was getting arrogant about his strength, but in front of monsters like that, he is just an ant. But suddenly, he notices something strange in the sky and looks closer at the battle scene. The young man sees a ball of light floating and wonders what that is in the middle of that battle. From the light emerges a rank 7 Grandmaster who asks to borrow the territory from the Beast King. But the giant bird does not like the idea at all and screeches it never said it would lend its territory. The man then says he will strike the beast until it finally agrees to his request. With that, the creature charges at the master with its sharp claws in a direct attack. The bird lets out a battle cry as it advances for battle against the powerful human in the sky. The Grandmaster gets annoyed by the noise and goes on the attack with incredible speed. He hits the creature with a sequence of powerful punches and strikes it multiple times non-stop. With a final blow, the man hits the bird with everything and pushes it back with a huge impact. The master then tells the beast to leave and tells it not to make him repeat his warning again. The bird flies away and screeches he will regret it, but the man ignores it and tells it to disappear. After the brief fight, the Grandmaster hovers in the air with a calm and very confident expression. He then introduces himself and tells the students not to panic because the exam continues. On the ground, Su Hong is shocked and wonders if that is the strength of a rank 7 martial artist. With a determined look, he promises himself that one day he will also reach that level. The Grandmaster then flies toward the camp to meet with other instructors. He lands in front of them and complains the beast should have agreed instead of forcing him to fight. The instructors comment the master is stronger than the rumors and that he defeated the Beast King easily. The man then calls them to the monitoring room to see who withstood the beast's pressure. In the room, they see most of the students couldn't handle the pressure and passed out during the attack. But the master points to a student who took down tigers and resisted the power, asking his name. The woman says he is the city lord's son and possesses a special barbarian god physique. The master points to another who used his agility to escape, and the woman says he is from the Lin family. He also sees a girl who used her spiritual power to nullify the pressure of the great golden bird. Impressed, he asks if there are other talents, but the instructor only lists others from big families. She explains those who resisted are strong, but the master complains they are all from rich families. The woman says the ones from the school are weak, and the man says the high school does not deserve its reputation. But suddenly one of the instructors yells and points at one of the screens, completely shocked and startled. The screen shows Su Hong hunting fierce beasts even after feeling the Beast King's pressure. The instructor is amazed and says that student is the monster from their city's #1 school. The other man asks her not to make noise in front of the Grandmaster and to stay calm in the room. But the instructor himself is also shocked by what he sees and repeats the word monster in a low voice. The master complains about their reaction, and the woman says they are young and lack a firm temperament. But the Grandmaster himself is shocked and wonders if that young man is really a true human being. In the file, they see Su Hong has 100% affinity and cultivates 7 techniques at once. Shocked, he wonders how such a genius came from there, and calls him a rare talent seen once in 1,000 years. With his eyes glowing red, the master crumples the file and yells he struck gold there. The master wonders why the guy's blood QI is so low even with so much talent and potential. Angrily, he figures it's because of the 7 techniques and blames the association's president for it. An assistant warns the students are arriving, and the Grandmaster decides to go take a look at them. The 3 geniuses he saw earlier greet him, and the man says they are very good fighters. 6 hours later, the exhausted students arrive at the camp and talk about the Beast King. 7.5 hours later, the master suggests ending the exam and calls those who haven't arrived weak. He wonders where Su Hong is and fears his precious treasure will be eliminated for being late. But suddenly, the protagonist emerges from the forest, and the man says the kid finally made it. Covered in bruises, the guy thinks he almost forgot the time because he was focused on earning points. The others are shocked and wonder how many beasts he took down to get that messy. The 2 he defeated earlier see him, and one of them says he will get his revenge inside the camp. The other geniuses also watch him and find it interesting that he arrived right at the end of the time. The instructor then announces the 8 hours are up, and he will explain the camp's rules. He explains there are several facilities like the Gravity Room and the Beast Combat Room, and also the Martial Arts Pavilion where they can trade for items and weapons up to rank A. Our hero is impressed by the news and thinks coming to the camp was the right choice. But the man warns that to use the facilities, they will need contribution points. And the only way to get points is by passing the subjects with excellent performance. He then tells the injured ones to follow him to the dormitories and says the others can go train. Once in his room, the protagonist is happy to have a place to cultivate without being watched. Sitting on his bed, he opens his status and decides to use his 354 martial points. With that, he uses all his points to evolve his mortal body to the maximum power level. A powerful red aura surrounds him and his eyes glow with energy as his body evolves. Power flows through his veins and a strange constellation forms on his chest during the process. The released energy creates a whirlpool inside the room, but he manages to control the power. After the transformation, he breathes a sigh of relief and feels much stronger than before the evolution. With a confident smile, he wonders if a simple physical attack can really be that strong. On his screen, he sees his body evolve to the Supreme Lord body and wonders what that is. The guy realizes his body can still evolve and wonders what extraordinary form it will take. He decides to test his new strength and grabs his spear to see how powerful he really became. With just a squeeze, he feels the metal spear start to yield under the pressure of his hand. The young man is shocked because the rank C alloy is about to break with a simple squeeze. He complains because he spent a fortune on that spear and now it can't handle his strength anymore. But he remembers he got the weapon for free and decides he needs a new rank A1 soon. The protagonist thinks he can earn points by wearing a weighted vest and heads to the warehouse. Arriving there, he is shocked to see a student lifting a 3,000-kilogram weight by himself. The others comment he still finds the weight light, and a regular martial artist can only handle a few hundred. The other geniuses observe and comment that the guy's strength is truly monstrous and abnormal. In the control room, the master comments this is the strength of a barbarian god's body in action. An instructor then asks when they will talk to Su Hong about the 7 cultivation techniques. The master says geniuses are arrogant and a direct approach to correct Su Hong won't work. He then asks if the night attack team is ready, but an instructor says he needs more time. With a smile, the man says the students are relaxed and an attack now would make them cry. Then the Grandmaster orders an elite fighter to be assigned to crush our hero. The instructors are shocked and worried because the opponent has a much higher combat power. But the man yells that if the guy's martial heart breaks so easily, he is nothing but trash. Outside, someone yells that Wang Tianchu is going to the gravity room and calls everyone. Meanwhile, the protagonist thinks he should go soon to watch the other geniuses train. Inside the warehouse, he finds a smart bracelet and wonders if it calculates the points. The young man then looks at the weighted vests and starts looking for one that fits his body. He sees a 10-ton vest made of a super heavy alloy and wonders who would use that. The guy tries to wear one but realizes the weight greatly affects his speed and stamina in training. With a 5-ton vest in hand, he tests the weight and it seems to be the most suitable for him. Suhong then starts moving quickly around the room to test his limits with the new weight. With a smile, he concludes a 5-ton load is ideal for his current training. He then wonders what weight Wang Tiantu and his group chose for their workout. So the guy decides to go watch the others train, hoping to learn something new. Arriving there, he sees a crowd commenting that Wang is a beast for going in with a 3-ton vest. On a screen, everyone sees he fights with double gravity, which equals 6 tons. Suhong is shocked because he thought 3 tons was light and realizes he misunderstood his body's strength. Near the gravity room, he sees some students who seem afraid to enter the place. The guy asks why they don't train, and they say the others are far too strong for them. With a sigh, our hero understands the reason for his 2 training colleagues' hesitation. Ignoring the warning, he walks into the room, and the others question him for not waiting for the crowd to leave. The crowd then mocks him, calling him stupid and thinking he has no shame. The protagonist walks into the room and thinks he cannot waste the chance because the place is expensive. He thinks with double gravity, his 5-ton vest would feel like 10, and he wouldn't handle it. To endure more time in training, he then decides to set the gravity to 1.5. Suddenly, he feels an enormous pressure on his body and complains that it is very heavy. Outside, everyone mocks him for using only 1.5 gravity and calls him weak. Sitting down, he realizes the cultivation speed is incredible and the room is highly efficient. 2 hours pass, and the young man keeps meditating while his body releases a red aura. With sweat running down his face, he opens his eyes, which glow with an intense blue light. On his screen, he sees his guidance arts leveled up and his blood Q increased. He gets up with difficulty and thinks the other rooms in the camp must be amazing. With an exhausted body, he finally leaves the gravity room and goes to the outside area. The guys from earlier mock him for coming out sweaty and not handling the gravity without a vest. But our hero takes off his jacket and complains his weighted suit is terrible for ventilation. Seeing the vest under his clothes, the two are shocked and left speechless by the scene. The others wonder how heavy the vest was, and one comments that his strength is decent. One of the students says despite Su Hong's skill, he can't compare to the monster Wang Tianchu. Suddenly, someone yells that Wang Tianchu is coming out and he handled 6 tons for 2 hours. With a sweaty body, the genius leaves the room, and everyone praises him as the strongest in the camp. The other students are impressed by the display of strength and feel motivated by the feat. The guy then stretches and breathes in relief while commenting the weight was truly frightening. Another genius challenges him to the movement room, but Wang says it would be crazy to compete with him in that. The protagonist overhears the conversation and is surprised to learn the other guy has a rank 8 technique. With a determined look, he thinks that although his body is strong, he needs a movement technique. In the movement room, everyone talks about the powerful flying swan technique used for training. A student says the room has arrow shooters and the genius chose the maximum difficulty. With incredible speed, the guy dodges several attacks and leaves everyone's jaws on the floor. He even has energy to show off with flower petals, and a girl finds him very handsome. Our hero is impressed by the technique, and a panel shows he started learning it. With his eyes glowing, he analyzes the genius's every move and memorizes all the details of the fight. The young man then starts mimicking the other guy's steps and prepares to test the new skill. The other students notice what he is doing, and one points at the guy in surprise. They start laughing and find it ridiculous. He thinks he can learn a rank a technique just by watching. Meanwhile, his progress increases rapidly, and he is already copying the movements perfectly. The learning percentage rises non-stop, and a glowing aura surrounds the protagonist's body. With a smile, he celebrates having learned his first rank A movement technique. He thinks the other guy's movements are too flashy and even a bit embarrassing for him. But since he already learned the technique, he decides to go to the beast room to earn more points. The guy wonders why everyone is staring at him, and they comment his pose was impressive. With a red face, he realizes he must have copied the other's flashy poses in the real world. Embarrassed, he runs away and swears never to use the other guy as a model again while the others praise him. As he runs away, he feels someone is following him and goes on high alert. It's the 2 guys he humiliated earlier, and they are planning an ambush at the beast room exit. Our hero then arrives at the beast room and sees a large crowd gathered in front of the place. In front of the room, Wang Tiantu argues with a girl to see who is the true number 1 in the camp. He says she can't beat his barbarian god body, but she accuses him of underestimating her power. The young man is curious about a spiritual reader's fighting style and decides to watch their battle. The girl then enters the arena and jumps toward beasts while our hero wonders what is going on. He is shocked to see the girl floating and realizes this is the power of a spiritual reader. With a glow in her hand, she defeats 3 black tigers at once and leaves him stunned by the scene. Beams of light pierce the beast at high speed, and he wonders what those attacks were. Suddenly, a huge beast with 3 eyes appears and roars at the girl with a threatening aura. The creature's eyes glow with fury as it prepares to attack the powerful fighter. Using her power, the lady manages to control one of the beasts and pins it mid-air with ease. Then she attacks with a series of golden energy strikes and puts on a light show in the arena. Watching the fight closely, our hero realizes the light beams were actually daggers. The guy understands spiritual readers are strong because they can float and control enemies. Suddenly, everyone on screen sees a giant golden sword and wonders what that is. The girl then summons the sword and uses it to attack a giant serpent right in front of her. With a focused look full of determination, the young warrior advances for combat. The energy weapon then strikes through the beast with overwhelming power and defeats it instantly. Our hero is confused and wonders if she had a weapon, since he didn't see anything in her hands. Lin Sing then explains that this is a rank A martial technique exclusive to spiritual readers. The others are amazed and wonder how everyone there has rank A techniques, and if Wang has one too. He confirms he does, and the technique is offensive, leaving everyone shocked by the camp's monsters. The protagonist gets excited because the training camp is full of techniques and he came to the right place. On the screen, Wang defeats a beast with a punch, and everyone comments he didn't use any technique at all. The guy realizes Wang won't use his technique, but thinks he'll get another chance to learn from him. He then opens his status and sees he needs 73 more points to become a spiritual reader. With a wicked smile, he decides he will go on a hunting streak to get the points he needs. The two following him see him enter the room and get ready for their revenge plan. They comment no one is paying attention and it's the perfect chance to sneak in and hit him. But suddenly, one of them yells in shock, and the other tells him to stay quiet so they won't be noticed. Pointing at the screen, they see the guy is surrounded by dozens of high-level beasts. He then wonders if the young man is crazy for challenging over a dozen beasts at the same time. One of them suggests calling an instructor, but the other says it's too late and he will be torn apart. Inside the arena, So Hong smiles and says it seems the two won't get their revenge after all. With a confident gesture, he then calls the beast to fight and prepares for combat. The creatures charge furiously and surround him in a wave of totally sharp claws and fangs. But using his agility, the guy dodges a pincer attack with incredible ease. Next, he counters and his hands glow with an extremely powerful blue energy. With a direct strike, he hits one of the monsters squarely and throws it far away with an explosion. Energy flows from his hands as he molds it to create devastating and continuous attacks. The young man becomes a hurricane of power and strikes multiple creatures at once non-stop. The two are shocked and wonder if they are dreaming, because that seems impossible for him. One of them then recognizes the technique and yells that those are Lin Sing's flying swan steps. The other wonders if the guy learned the technique just by watching the genius use it once. His friend suggests forgetting about revenge because the two of them together are no match for our hero. But the bully refuses to give up and says he can't swallow the insult he suffered earlier. The buddy then points at the screen and tells him to take another look before picking a fight. With his face pale from fear, the guy is paralyzed by the scene he sees in front of him. His wooden club breaks and falls to the ground while they stand in silence watching. In a few minutes, our hero is already standing on a pile of 10 defeated beasts in the arena. He sees he earned 61 points and realizes it is getting harder to earn martial value. Even so, the young man does not give up and stays focused on his goal of getting stronger. Suddenly, new beasts emerge from the darkness and prepare to attack the protagonist in the arena. He looks at the new creatures and says there is no time to rest, and he will keep going. A massive monster with sharp claws and red eyes charges toward him to attack. With a serious look, he readies his fist, which glows with golden energy, to strike back. Then the guy attacks with a powerful kick, hitting several beasts at once with his energy. He becomes the center of a golden light tornado and defeats all the enemies around him. The remaining monsters get scared and start slowly backing away from our hero. With his eyes glowing, he asks where they are going and says they must hand over their martial value. The protagonist then leaps nimbly into the air and chases a giant scorpion for battle. Amidst the chaos of the fight, he keeps battling dozens of creatures without stopping for a second. Outside, the two bullies watch the screen and are left completely speechless by the scene. One of them says he decided to forgive him because revenge only breeds more revenge and they should leave. In the crowd, everyone comments Wang was defeated in 10 minutes and Yan took down 8 beasts without moving. Someone then asks if they got their revenge, and one of them lies saying yes with a fake smile. They think that if they weren't smart, they would be on the floor right now, and the camp is full of monsters. Suddenly, Wang and the girl walk out of the room, and a curious person asks how many points they got. The genius reveals he scored 280 points, while the spiritual reader shows her 270. Everyone is shocked because a high-level beast is only worth 5 points, so they took down dozens of them. Checking his status, Wang sees the vest penalty was minus 100 points, and he only got 50. The other students are also sad because they only managed 10, 20, or 30 points of balance. Someone asks who won the competition, and he points at Lin Sing, leaving everyone discouraged. The two guys from earlier laugh and comment there's a monster even more terrifying than those 3 geniuses. An hour later, the beast room is completely destroyed and covered in battle marks. Several giant and powerful creatures were defeated and are scattered across the arena floor. Tired, our hero sits on a pile of enemies and takes a deep breath after the long combat. Even exhausted, he thinks he is still far from the 735 points he needs. But checking his wrist, he sees he earned 700 points and wonders what he can buy. So the young man decides to go to the martial arts pavilion to trade his points for items. Arriving there, he finds a bored woman at the counter and starts looking at what he can get. He sees a list with pills and rank A abilities that cost thousands of contribution points. The guy finds the techniques very expensive but thinks the pill prices are actually decent. The attendant watches him and thinks that since he's a rookie, he probably has no money for anything. He then asks if the spiritual focus pill increases mental power, and she confirms it does. The lady explains the strongest one they have is level 4, which costs 500 points. Then, to the woman's surprise, the protagonist decides he will take one level 4 pill. Our hero confirms the order, and she is shocked because the item costs 500 points total. When checking the payment, she is amazed to see the kid has 700 contribution points. With a smile, she hands over the item, and he says thanks, asking if she has a metal alloy spear. She happily answers yes and says it's only 200 points, thanking the handsome guy for the purchase. Back at his dorm, he gets ready to use the new items he just acquired. With a smile, he admires his new rank C spear with both lightning and fire attributes. In the room, he looks at his status and sees his techniques improved, and he earned many martial points. He then opens the box with the pill and thinks his mental power is at 26.5 and he needs more. With the item in his hands, the guy hopes the pill gives the power boost he needs to evolve. Determined, he swallows the item and states with certainty that he will become a spiritual reader. The pill then dissolves in his body and releases a powerful aura of entirely green energy. As soon as he swallows it, he feels the effects of the level 4 item taking over his whole being. With his eyes closed, he feels his tired nerves relaxing and thinks the sensation is really good. His mind becomes so clear that he can now sense everything happening around him. At that moment, the young man opens his eyes, which glow with a very intense and powerful blue light. On his status, he sees his mental power increased by 24 points and is shocked by the pill. He calculates that with his current points he is at 99.5% and is only missing half. Lying on the bed, he regrets not taking down one more beast and decides to rest for now. Meanwhile, at the camp's warehouse, a group of veteran warriors is gathered. The men seem agitated and start talking among themselves about the reason they are there. One asks why a veteran was called up if he already trains at the martial arts university. Angrily, the other says if he was in high school, those kids wouldn't even serve as a punching bag. A big guy laughs and says his student Wang Tiantuo has a blood Q of 340. Another veteran brags his student has over 300 Q and is also a spiritual reader. The guy from earlier looks at Su Hong's file and gets annoyed seeing he has only 123 Qi. The others mock him for getting a weak opponent and wonder if the Grandmaster didn't make a huge mistake. Suddenly, the Grandmaster appears and says there was no mistake in choosing the opponents. The veteran complains, but the man says Su Hong is stronger and can rival an elite warrior. The others are shocked and wonder what kind of monster the kid is to have so much power. The master says the information is confidential, and the guy complains about having to fight a rookie. Angrily, the old man smacks the guy on the head and yells he must fight with everything until the young man regrets it. The guy asks if the master has something against the kid and if he won't mind if he hurts him. With a scary smile, the man says he will be rewarded if he leaves the guy in a bad state. The Grandmaster then yells for everyone to go, and the veteran warriors jump into their mission. At night, the training camp is silent under the light of the moon and the stars in the sky. Suddenly, several stealth fighters invade the place and start attacking the students in their dorms. The students yell about the ambush, and one complains he didn't even have time to get dressed. In his room, our hero is startled by the noise and realizes someone is attacking the place. He then looks at the door and sees it was marked with a large X made by a sharp blade. The veteran then bursts the door open with his sword glowing with powerful purple energy. The man's attack destroys the bedroom floor in an explosion of power and kicks up a lot of dust. Fallen, the protagonist wonders if it's other races trying to eliminate humanity's geniuses. The young man then quickly gets up and prepares to leave the room to face the threat. With his spear in hand, he stares at the enemy and wonders what the man's true strength is. The veteran calls him a brat and says he's out of luck while preparing an energy attack. Our hero is surprised to see the opponent is a human warrior and not from another race. With a smile, our hero thinks the enemy is perfect and exactly what he needed. He thinks if he defeats him, he can get the last 5 points and become a spiritual reader. The veteran is shocked that a rookie like him is fighting back and not running away, calling him crazy. Then the two weapons clash in a flash of purple energy that lights up the entire room. The man realizes the kid's strength is intense, and the Grandmaster didn't lie about his power. But he senses the power is even greater and wonders if a level 1 warrior should be that strong. The protagonist then shouts he has defeated an elite warrior before and attacks him with more force. With a battle cry, our hero releases a red aura and prepares for the final blow. In a quick move, he spins his spear and throws the veteran far away with a powerful impact. Fallen on the floor, the man wonders in shock if the kid in front of him is some kind of monster. He then says a battle between warriors does not rely only on brute force to win. His sword then starts glowing with a purple flame as he stares at the young man from afar. The protagonist is interested because it is his first time seeing a fire-type martial art. The veteran's weapon burns with incredible intensity and prepares for the next attack. The man then jumps in the air and asks how the guy will deal with his rank B martial art. With a yell, he unleashes his powerful technique called Flame Slash and advances for the strike. But our hero uses his lightning spear and thinks this power is greater than his other technique. The lightning spear then collides with the fire sword in a clash of elemental energies. The impact of the two blows generates a massive explosion that destroys everything around them. In the dust, we see the veteran fallen on the floor while the protagonist remains standing after the clash. Our hero stands with his spear while the veteran is on the ground completely shocked. The man thinks the kid blocked his rank B technique with just lightning and understands why he has to go all out. He gets up and says the young man doesn't know lightning spear techniques and so he can still win. But with a smile, Su-hong confirms he doesn't know them, yet his weapon starts glowing with electricity. Then he asks what would happen if he added fire, and the spear catches fire and shoots lightning. The veteran is in shock with the scene and wonders how that could even be possible. With a scared face, he yells that is a fusion of attributes and is left in disbelief. The man thinks all warriors know different attributes cancel each other out and do not mix. Sweating cold, he realizes the fusion of thunder and fire that he thought was a legend is real. The protagonist's eyes glow with the energy of the two combined elements in his body. Then the guy advances to attack and the veteran panics at the incoming strike. To defend himself, he uses his Flame Slash again with all his strength to counter. The spear and the sword clash once more and our hero tries to deflect the enemy's attack. With an explosion of power, he overpowers the veteran and launches an energy wave at him. The man is terrified by the young man's power and yells that this is completely ridiculous. He is then thrown far away by a huge explosion that destroys everything around him. The light from the energy explosion fills the entire room in an intense and bright flash. After the dust settles, the guy sees he earned another 7 martial value points with the victory. With a smile, he celebrates having gotten the points to become a spiritual reader. A few seconds earlier, the Grandmaster was watching the building from afar with his assistant. The master says Su-hong must have already been defeated and he will finally be able to correct him. Suddenly, a body is thrown from the building and flies toward them at high speed. The man then crashes with a thud right in front of the Grand Master and his shocked assistant. Fallen on the ground with a bruised face, the elite veteran is completely knocked out. The assistant is shocked to recognize the man and asks in surprise if he is Bu Jingfeng. She then realizes if he is there defeated, it means Su-hong won the fight against him. Next, several other people are sent flying from the building with colorful auras around them. All of them hit the ground hard and join the first veteran who has already fallen there. In the end, all 4 veteran warriors are on the ground defeated by the young geniuses. Wong then yells for the master to bring someone stronger because the challenge wasn't enough. The guy then looks at the ground and is amazed to see there are 4 people fallen, not just 3. The others wonder how someone won faster and think the warrior must have been very weak. But the assistant says he was the strongest of the 4 and is shocked by what happened. The master thinks Su-hong defeated a near level 2 faster than the other geniuses. He then wonders how the guy managed to do that and if he has a special technique or body. Suddenly, an instructor runs up to them and yells that something very important just happened. The master asks if any student fell by mistake and says some casualties are to be expected. But the man yells no and says Su-hong used a fusion technique in the fight against Bu Jingfeng. The master then understands everything and remembers the young man wanted to learn the 7 guide techniques. In a mix of shock and euphoria, he starts pulling his own hair, unable to believe what he heard. Furiously, the Grandmaster grabs the instructor and yells he cannot say such nonsense. The man says he saw everything on the monitors, and if they don't believe him, they can ask the veteran. Fallen on the ground, the warrior confirms the fusion of thunder and fire with 2 attributes is true. The master freaks out because the only genius who did this took 10 years, and Su-hong has been training for less than a month. He then changes his mood and calls the guy a true dragon, leaving the other 2 confused. The assistant asks if the fusion is that strong, and he says the previous user could suppress a level 2. She then questions why such formidable power isn't encouraged if someone can succeed. The man explains it is very hard and can ruin cultivation, leaving the warrior stuck at level 1. But he gets excited because Su-hong did it in less than a month and might merge all 7 attributes. He imagines the young man growing up and being able to stun the emperors of the 10,000 races with 1 hit. The 2 then calm him down and say he is exaggerating because merging 7 attributes is just a fantasy. He calms down and thinks if the guy gets stuck in a 3 attribute fusion, he will be a sinner. Suddenly, the instructor remembers Su-hong has a special body, and that is why he crushed the veteran. They comment the vitality difference is 4 times as much and his power surpasses Wang Tianchu's. So the master decides to set up a fight tomorrow to test all aspects of the guy's power. He wants to see what happens when a monster like Su-hong faces the strongest geniuses in camp. Meanwhile, back in his room, our hero sits down to meditate amidst the debris. The smoke from the battle still hangs in the air as he focuses on the next step of his plan. He then accesses his status and decides to put all his martial values into spirit points. With a smile, he feels the power flow and finally manages to become a spiritual reader. Our hero meditates and feels a strange different sensation take over his entire body. He compares the new feeling to having a 3rd arm, and a huge spiritual hand appears behind him. He opens his eyes, and his status shows his spirit reached 100.2% of the total. The young man then looks at the destruction his new power caused around him in the room. He focuses on a piece of rubble on the floor and gets ready to use his new mental power on it. Using his power, the guy then starts lifting the piece of debris into the air with his mind. He celebrates that he can now walk on air and use psychokinesis just like the powerful spiritual reader. The guy thinks he now needs to learn her spiritual martial art and Wang Tianchu's technique. The next morning, an announcement tells everyone to gather in 1 minute or lose their points. All the students then start running desperately down the stairs so they won't be late. They complain the camp is insane because they had an exam, training, and a night attack. Dozens of students then gather in the courtyard outside the main building of the place. In the crowd, our protagonist stands and looks very calm and confident about it. The instructor looks at the students and says it is good because not a single person was late for roll call. He says he thought many would be too exhausted to get out of bed and calls them geniuses. A student complains he lost the fight because the enemy didn't even let him put his underwear on first. The instructor then asks if an attacker from other races would wait for him to put on his underwear. The other students laugh at his face and nickname him Underwear Bro because of his complaint. The other instructor says it's normal to be frustrated after such an exhausting day like yesterday. He then says many are dissatisfied and so they organized a test for that day. The instructor explains the test will evaluate blood Q power, strength, and even speed. After the test, he reveals there will be a combat ranking and the top 10 will receive points. The students think the top 3 spots already belong to the geniuses, but there are prizes down to 10th place. With a smile, our hero hears everything and wonders what the reward for first place will be. The instructor then yells for everyone to be quiet and follow him to the evaluation area. They arrive at a warehouse that serves as a test field with a level 2 power monitor. The Grandmaster looks at the crowd and notices the guy is hiding and doesn't draw much attention. A student thinks the master is looking at him, but his friend soon says he is mistaken. The protagonist then notices the man's fixed gaze and understands he is the actual target. The master says he has high expectations, and therefore the winner will get a rank of martial art. Everyone is shocked by the prize and comments that now Wang and the other two will go all out. The genius thinks rank of martial arts are rare and even his family owns very few. The girl also gets excited and thinks she can pick any technique if she comes in first. The other guy thinks about getting a technique that matches his steps to prove his worth. Our hero also gets excited about the reward and decides he will give his all on the test. With a serious look, the Grandmaster thinks he is going to see how strong the kid really is in the test. The man then calls the 3 geniuses to be the first, and they go to the front of the room. The other students wonder who would dare to go after them, as the next ones will sweat a lot. But to everyone's shock, the master announces the 4th participant will be our protagonist. A classmate comments the guy has no luck, and another asks if he offended the Grandmaster. The students comment the master wants to use the weakest to motivate the others, and the contrast will be brutal. The master tells him to test combat power first while the guy runs to the testing machine. With a fast move, the genius then hits the combat machine with an extremely powerful strike. The monitor screen then lights up and reveals he scored an impressive 4,013 points. The others are shocked because he scored over 4,000 on what he claims is his weak point. The protagonist thinks since he uses a rank technique, his martial arts certainly isn't bad. The guy then focuses his powerful green energy in his fist and prepares for the next attack. He then uses his Gale Punch technique and hits the machine with everything he has got. This time the score goes even higher, and the monitor displays the number 5,642. Everyone is amazed because that power belongs to a level 2 martial artist, and it's not even his specialty. Suho acquires the technique and thinks the increase of 1,600 points was a bit low for him. The genius passes by the girl and says her score was just okay, making her very annoyed. The spiritual reader scores 3,253 points, and the guy thinks that's quite normal. She then focuses and her eyes glow with golden energy as she yells with power. The girl hits the machine with a massive strike that releases a large burst of golden energy. Our hero then learns the spiritual weapon condensation art and thinks the camp is amazing. With a smile, he wonders how many other martial arts he will still manage to learn that day. The energy of the girl's hit condenses on the machine, which prepares to show the final result. With her eyes glowing intensely, the lady focuses all her spiritual power into a single point. Finally, she releases an energy wave that pushes her back and hits the testing machine squarely. The monitor then displays the score, and she hits 5,942 power points. The crowd is shocked because she scored almost 6,000 and easily surpassed the other genius. Our hero gets jealous and thinks about the power to fly and control objects she now has. In his mind, the young man imagines using spiritual power and is surrounded by a golden aura. With a gesture, he visualizes energy condensation and how the technique actually works in combat. He thinks the technique can create anything, but the more solid it is, the more spiritual power it uses. The guy realizes that with his current power level, it will be hard to learn the technique right away. So he decides to learn it later and turns his attention to Wang Tianchuo, who steps into the arena. The crowd yells it's Wang's turn and the true god of combat power has finally arrived. Su Hong then wonders what the difference is between the barbarian god's body and his overlord body. With a clenched fist, Wong says that strike will show the huge power difference between them. Next, he runs and hits the testing machine with a punch that generates a massive shockwave. Everyone is amazed because he scored 5,612 points with just a regular physical punch. The Grandmaster and his assistant watch the scene, and the old man says the result was very good. Wong thanks the master's compliment and says he will now use one of his martial arts on the machine. The protagonist gets excited and thinks he will finally see the genius's famous rank A technique. Wong's hand then glows with a ghostly white energy and prepares for the next attack. He then focuses his power and prepares to use his powerful fist technique against the target. The master observes the guy's attack and recognizes the rank A ghost fire fist technique. Su-hong acquires the technique and remembers it costs 2,800 contribution points. With his eyes glowing in a ghostly light, the genius then yells and advances to attack. He then hits the testing machine with a powerful strike that releases a wave of white energy. The scoreboard goes up to 7,534, and everyone is shocked by his power. The master praises him and says he might become a grandmaster, and the guy thanks him. With a serious look, the man then calls the next participant and says it's now Su-hong's turn. The crowd mocks him and says the guy is going to embarrass himself after the three geniuses before him. The master explains the first punch is pure physical strength and he cannot use martial arts. Our hero then gets into position and an aura of power starts to emanate from his entire strong body. With a totally focused look, he takes a deep breath and gets ready to show his true strength. The young man advances with everything and thinks the test reward will surely be totally his. His punch then hits the machine and causes a huge dust explosion that covers everything around. After the smoke settles, the monitor lights up and reveals the score of 6,551. The Grandmaster is shocked and thinks he still underestimated what a freak the kid really is. The entire crowd falls completely silent and stares at the scoreboard unable to believe what they see. They then start yelling and wondering if the machine broke because he was the worst in the class. The three geniuses are shocked and admit his power isn't that of a normal level 1 warrior. Our hero asks if he can continue and the master agrees, still surprised by what he did. The protagonist then prepares for his next test in front of the place's combat machine. He starts learning the fire fist technique and an aura of blue flames completely surrounds him. The young man thinks the technique suits him and is easier to learn than the rank A1 from before. The assistant says the kid is from an ordinary family, so his technique shouldn't be anything strong. But the master thinks the martial art he will use is definitely not low level. The guy's system shows he learned 100% of the technique at the entry level. Everyone is shocked to see he is using the same technique as Wong and wonders how he knows it. With a smile, the young man thinks he is going to test the power of the offensive rank A martial art. He then attacks the machine with a powerful strike that creates a huge and devastating impact. The crowd yells his power is greater than Wong's and wonders what his score is. The screen shows 9,013, and everyone is shocked because the level 2 standard is only 9,000. The assistant says the data is garbage, and the master agrees the kid is a real monster. Wong says he must have hidden his vitality, and it's not shameful to lose to him. Someone yells the guy's vitality is only 137 and thinks the machine broke. The assistant finds the scene ridiculous because the screen shows only 137 vitality. The crowd says it's insane to have 9,000 power with only 137 vitality. The protagonist then steps out of the test capsule under the watchful eye of the Grandmaster and the others. The master then tells them to stop crowding and that they will begin the real combat test. He explains whoever isn't challenged by anyone will be number 1 and get the reward. Suddenly, Lin Xin approaches and starts talking directly to the Grandmaster at the venue. With a confident look, the genius then points to the guy and says he wants to fight Su-hong. He explains the opponent's vitality is weak and he can beat him with just his speed. But to his surprise, the Grandmaster denies his request, and the guy yells it can't be like that. The master then says all three can go after our hero at the exact same time. The geniuses feel insulted and ask why they should attack together, and one fears hurting the guy. With that, the Grandmaster asks Su-hong's opinion, who calmly says he has no objections. The trio gets annoyed by his arrogance, and one says he can easily beat him alone. The man then gives the signal and authorizes the start of the combat among the four in the middle of the arena. Instantly, the three geniuses charge with everything at our protagonist standing there. The white-haired guy plans to use his speed to corner and ambush Su-hong from behind. Suddenly, his companions yell for him to be careful and dodge the incoming attack. But it is already too late, and our hero appears right in front of him, leaving the genius completely shocked. With a cold look, the protagonist says goodbye while preparing his powerful strike against him. His hand moves at high speed toward the opponent's face, who cannot react. The strike barely grazes him, and the guy is pushed back, narrowly escaping the attack. He thanks the girl for saving him and warns the adversary's speed is unnatural. At that moment, the young man feels the mental power controlling him, and says he isn't used to it. He then looks at the group and understands the spiritual reader is the biggest threat right now. Therefore, our hero decides he needs to take her out of combat first and advances rapidly. The lady then uses her cloud step technique to dodge the guy's attack there. The other genius is shocked because he knows the same technique and assumes he has two attributes. He yells he will block the young man's advance while the girls should use mind control. With his fist glowing, the genius then gets ready to use his ghost fire technique. But the protagonist also uses the ghost fire fist technique with a bluish aura. The girl uses her mind power and yells for the opponent to freeze right where he stands. The young man feels the pressure and realizes her mind control is stronger than he thought. Meanwhile, the other genius takes the chance and advances with a powerful kick against him. The master thinks it was too early for the fight and her skills are hard to deal with. But to everyone's surprise, the guy smiles even under the lady's mind control. With a quick movement, he clashes with the other guy's fist, forming a shockwave. Then our hero unleashes his power and uses brute force to break free from the girl's control. The lady is shocked to see he broke her technique and ends up coughing due to the impact. Next, the protagonist manages to grab the opponent's fist, who tried to attack him head-on. At the same time, he blocks the other genius's kick by holding his leg with his other hand. He manages to stop both attacks at the same time, leaving the two geniuses immobilized in the fight. The crowd yells it's absurd, he stopped everything just with physical strength, and he is a beast. The kicking genius gets stuck and can't break free from our hero's iron grip. The other guy also tries to break free, but the protagonist's strength is too much for him. The white-haired youth then screams in shock and pain upon realizing the situation he got into. With a smile, our hero then starts spinning the two opponents in the air as if they were dolls. The other guy gets desperate as he didn't expect the fight to take such an unexpected turn. With his eyes glowing with white light, the protagonist prepares for the final strike. He then slams the two hard onto the arena floor, creating a huge crater in the place. The guy ends up face down on the ground and complains about his terrible current situation. Meanwhile, the other genius spits to the side and looks far more injured than his friend. The other students are completely shocked and can't believe what they just saw. The crowd comments the fight was too brutal and our hero showed no mercy at all. The two guys stay on the ground defeated and with a look of pure disbelief on their faces. Su-hong then approaches the two fallen opponents and observes them with a calm look. Suddenly, the girl raises her hands and surrenders, afraid of being the next to take a beating. With her eyes locked on the young man, she slowly backs away and yells for him not to get closer. His classmates comment he really won and call the guy a monster for defeating the trio. The master then steps up and asks if anyone else wants to challenge our protagonist in the arena. Everyone stays silent, and one of them says only an idiot would dare fight him now. With that, the Grandmaster declares Su-hong the winner and tells the others to continue the contest. He then calls the young man over and says that as number 1, he can pick his rank a technique. Our hero smiles and gets excited about the idea of getting another martial art. As they walk, the man asks why the guy hid his strength for so long over there. The protagonist explains that without power or influence, he would become an easy target if he drew attention. The old man laughs and says he likes smart people, and the test was made to help him get resources. He then assures he will protect him, and he doesn't need to hide anymore, and the young man thanks him. They reach the martial arts pavilion, and the master asks for the list of all techniques in the place. With the list in hand, he asks the kid which technique he thinks is best for him at that moment. The master asks which techniques the guy already masters, and he lists several powerful martial arts. The old man is shocked because he doesn't have those arts and realizes he learned just by watching once. With a look of amazement, the Grandmaster thinks the young man is truly a real monster. The receptionist is amazed to see the master brought the boy personally to pick the technique. He then suggests a controlled technique called flame cage to trap enemies. He explains the art is hard because it requires energy control, but he believes in the young man's talent. The man says he knows the technique and will do a demonstration so he can decide later. With an excited smile, our hero thanks the Grandmaster for the opportunity. A small golden flame then appears in the palm of the old man's hand as he prepares for the technique. He creates a flame cage and says that although it does no damage, its usefulness in a fight is immense. The master explains the strategy is to trap the enemy with the cage and then attack without mercy. With the technique, he says it's possible to get an instant takedown if used correctly. But he warns keeping the cage and attacking at the same time is hard, and he only did it at rank 3. Hearing this, the guy rejects the technique right away and says he'll pass if it's that difficult. The old man is surprised by his refusal but thinks his potential is limitless since he listens to advice. But actually, the young man already acquired the technique and asks the master to help him find another one. Then the man suggests a defensive technique, since he masters the other combat areas. He shows the thick earth armor that condenses earth element energy for defense. The guy thinks the technique matches his body and the result will be amazing, so he accepts. The master then asks what his special physique is, and the young man answers it's the overlord body. He then thinks that with the overlord body, the master might even give him a bunch of techniques. The old man says he's never heard of that physique, and the young man admits he made up the name on the spot. But the man is impressed because he blocked a genius, and he's never seen a rank 1 with so much power. The Grandmaster gets thoughtful and tries to process the new information he just got from the guy. Suddenly his phone rings and the receptionist reports the guy was wearing a weighted vest in the fight. The man asks if it's true and the young man confirms, saying he wouldn't get points if he took it off. With that, the master freaks out and thinks he can't judge the kid with normal logic because he's a monster. Then he tells the guy to forget the points and take off the vest because the rewards will be bigger. The lady offers to help, and our hero warns the vest is a bit heavy for her. She brags saying she is a rank 2 martial artist and can easily handle the weight. But upon grabbing the vest, the lady gets a look of pure shock at the item's weight. The vest then falls from her hand and cracks the pavilion floor from the impact of the fall. She asks the vest's weight and the guy says it's 5 tons, leaving the master shocked. The old man then hugs the young man and says he has another rank A technique to give the little monster. The guy asks what the technique is, and the master recalls he uses a spear just like another master. He explains this other master has a thunder spear technique, one of the strongest in existence. The guy asks if it's okay to take the technique, and the man says the other master mocked them. So they are going to Yang City the next morning to get revenge, and the young man agrees. At night, we can see the outside of the dorm where the camp students are resting. Our hero then arrives in his room and notices the place was all set up for him by the camp. The system shows the new techniques, and the guy decides to practice to master everything by morning. Elsewhere, the master calls Jiang and tells him he's bringing a student to challenge him. Jiang laughs and says his camp produced a wood spirit genius who is already rank 2. He brags that in 2 days the student already mastered the rank 8 technique called wood prison. Then we see the student in question, a green-haired young man who looks very strong and well-trained. With a focused look, the guy concentrates his energy and prepares to show his skill. He then uses the wood prison, and giant green vines burst from the ground with full force. But suddenly, the vines stop moving, and the technique is interrupted halfway through the process. Next, the powerful wood technique dissolves into many glowing green light particles. The young man looks disappointed, and his master says control techniques are not easy at all. With a determined look, the guy asks for 1 more month to be able to master the technique completely. Jiang then brags to Kyun and says the student he trained is not just any trash. On the other end of the line, the Grandmaster gets furious at the provocation, and the other hangs up on his face. The man then tells his student not to go hard in the fight and to let the opponent save face. The young man agrees with a smile and says he can count on his great acting in combat. The following afternoon, they arrive at the Yang City camp, which sits on an ice mountain. The master and our hero arrive flying at the place for the big challenge between the 2 camps. The guy gets excited because he didn't expect his first flying experience to be like that. They then land in the training arena where the other master and his students are already waiting for them. With a mocking smile, Jiang asks Kyun what kind of genius he brought for the big fight. With a smile, Master Kyun introduces his student and says he is also a rank 1 spear user. But Jiang mocks him and asks if his friend went crazy treating a rank 1 like a treasure. The rival master thinks his rank 2 student will win easily and he needs to fake it in the fight. With that, the Grandmaster rushes the fight and says they need to get back for dinner afterward.